Hello.
Hello. So Allie.
Kevin.
So I don't know if you know this, but this might be a shock to you. I don't know if anyone else knows this, but there's a little show that starts off in like a couple days. And it's on CBS. I think it's quite popular amongst
Paramount Plus.
the general consensus of like reality TV proponents and things like that. I think it might be called Big Brother, and I think
that little show.
yeah, I think there's potentially like an elephant in the room that I think we maybe need to deal with, but perhaps a season of sorts that we just like completely ignored in terms of like podcast coverage, and we should probably like finally do a video about that. I don't know if like you think that's something we should do, but like
yeah, I think it's a good idea. Like at least talk about it. So because we didn't get to do last season, so
yeah, I think we should do that. Oh shit. Hey guys. Yeah, hi. We're here for the next episode of A Conversation with Kely. Yeah, so we'll just get it out of the way right now. Of course, I am here, my lovely, beautiful co-host Allie. How are you doing tonight? I should say, because we're filming.
I'm doing well. I just finished my shift at work, and now I'm on my days off. Of course, unless I get called in, but hopefully not. And then I have a dentist appointment tomorrow for cleaning. But other than that, just obviously it'll be today once people actually watch this.
Manifest her not getting called in. But no, in all seriousness.
But yeah, overall, like my weekend was good and I'm doing well. And always remember to drink your water.
Yes. But also for this podcast in particular, always remember you're doing this for the Lays. Always remember that.
I sadly don't have any Lays this time, but I do have chips.
Listen, I can tell you right now, this was not planned. My dad just like happened to buy Lays, and I was like, oh my god, this is the perfect fucking opportunity. And if you know, all I'll say is if you know, you know. My day was pretty good for the most part. I've been watching all the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movies because the new one comes out, and some of these films, they're fucking rough. I'm not gonna lie. Go on my letterbox if you want more information on that. But no, we're not here to talk about what we've been doing for the day. We're here to talk about what I feel like has been like a flashing neon sign for us at this point. As we all know, BB25 is very much like, imminent. It's starting up literally in a couple days. The countdown is on until and we have basically been, we've been fairly consistent in terms of podcasts and things like that. But the one thing that we have just kind of put off up until then is for Big Brother 24. And here's the thing. We were originally supposed to talk about this like when the season ended. I was planning to have like a whole retrospective with like guests and things like that. It just never ended up happening. Then I wanted to do like we were going to do a video before BB Can 11 came out, and then that never ended up happening. So it just got to a point where we basically said, all right, we're just going to wait until the new season comes out, and then we can finally talk about this season and things like that. And that is what we are going to do today. Now, before we do get into it, of course, I do want to talk about a couple things here. First of all, when we, and Allie, you can attest to this as well, because I'm sure you agree here. When this season initially came out, we were going to cover it weekly. We had plans to, do weekly coverage for it. And then just the way it started out, it left such a bad taste in our mouths. We just weren't interested. We didn't want to give it any attention. We were going to write it off almost immediately, just because of how...
Like we stopped kind of watching, and then we finally caught up.
Yeah, and it's mainly because I have never seen a season, and to me, this is the most like unique season of Big Brother I think I've ever seen, because I have never seen a season that starts off as such a spectacular low, and at the point where it's like completely unwatchable, represents all the worst traits of Big Brother, to end on such a amazing high, maybe some of the best Big Brother we've ever seen. I've never seen such a huge bait and switch, but that's the definition of this season. And just the more we kept hearing about it, it's like, okay, I think we eventually need to finally watch this. And thankfully we were able to actually watch the entire season like after it aired. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, we've seen it. It's taken us a while, but I will say, and I think you'll agree with me on this. This is a season that is so memorable. It's kind of hard to like leave your memory. Like even though we watched this all the way back in like September, I think it's still pretty fresh in my mind. I don't know about you.
Oh yeah, same. It's like it's definitely one that you could like really remember for years to come.
Yeah, definitely. But before we do get into everything, because I'm gonna say right now, we're doing this a little differently than how we normally talk about seasons of television. And I think we kind of have to, just so this video isn't so long. I'll talk about how we're going to do it in a little bit. But just general thoughts on this season overall before we do get into everything.
Well, overall, I mean, obviously, like you were saying, I echo you that like it started off really shitty and just pretty bad. Like some of the most unlikable people, and gameplay was just awful and shit. And then but it like really picked up later on that. So it's honestly like way better than we thought it would be. And like definitely it's not perfect. It's not the best season ever, but it's not the worst I've ever seen. But
it is an incredibly up and down season for me. And it really just and to be honest with you, it's one of those seasons where I was so back and forth with it. It really just came down to like, okay, the finale is what's going to determine it. If this finale ends in the way we want it to, and we have a really great outcome, then this can be regarded as a good season. If not, this is like one of the worst seasons of Big Brother. And I think that's what it is with Big Brother 24. It's like it ends on such a fantastic, on such an amazingly satisfying note that it's like, not all is forgiven, because the things that are bad are still really bad here. And we'll get into that. Like the first couple weeks especially are really rough to talk about with this season. And I can completely understand why.
There's definitely some parts, some things we are very uncomfortable to talk about, but
yeah, definitely. And a lot of people have covered it extensively and things like that, but we're still going to talk about everything that happened.
Like we're going to talk about how we can really say it, like because certain things make us a little bit queasy.
Yeah, I think it's still very important to still like reiterate what happened though, because we can't ignore all the terrible things that happen on the season. I just think knowing how it ends, it makes it a little bit easier to talk about because of the fact that like at least it ends on a really satisfying note and we have like a generally really just amazing story, possibly ending with, I think, what is maybe the most impressive win of all time on Big Brother. I mean, that might be the stretch for some people, but when you really think about the journey that the player we're talking about had, I think that's the best way to really describe it. But yeah, for me, it's a very up and down season. It's also, and what I think is so weird about this is it's the complete opposite of Big Brother 23. Like Big Brother 23 has one of the most likable casts of all time.
Oh yeah.
It's like probably one of the worst casts of all time. Big Brother 23 has an alliance that's like basically running the entire game for great reasons, obviously reasons that are beyond the game and things like that. But I've heard people say on repeat viewings, 23 is kind of a little bit boring because of the fact that like you kind of know the outcome and things like that. Whereas 24, I think, is one of the most unpredictable seasons of reality television I've ever seen. You literally could not predict what was going to happen this season week to week, which I think is incredible. And then probably the biggest difference, I think, in Big Brother is that we have a season where someone starts off in such a terrible position and then gets all the way to the top. And that just never happens in Big Brother. Like we always want to root for the underdog, but it's always kind of hard to, because it's like, does this person actually have a chance of making it far? And this season proved you can defy all odds. You can overcome that adversity. And I think it's just such a, honestly, refreshing season by the end.
No, definitely. It was like so unpredictable. It was just like wild. Like how like I was in awe of how much it picked up. Because like literally at the beginning I'm just like, yeah, I'm done with this season. I don't want like I thought it'd be another season 22. Like where
that's what I thought too.
Where I only watched like the beginning and the very end, like the finale. Well, the finale and the beginning. but it really wasn't. It was like not very many likable people, but like gameplay wise, and one of the best winners. Ugh, spot on.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so we're gonna stop talking about the season in general and just get into how we're going to do this. So obviously, there's a lot to talk about here. This is a very I think eventful season, not just in terms of the winner, but just in terms of everything that happens. And so just to keep things a little bit more concise, just to keep things a little bit just to make sure that like we don't have this go on for like 3 hours long. The way we're going to do this is almost rites of passage style. If you know what that means, is basically like we're going to go through each player individually, like as they were eliminated, but also try to cover like what happened in that week and like what got them to that point and things like that. And I think that's probably the easiest way to go about it, because I'll be straight up, some of these people I don't have jack shit to say about, because this is easily one of the worst cats. But there's some people I have a lot to say about and play a very monumental role. And so what we're going to do is we're going to try to like still focus on what happened that season, but also kind of try to structure it around what led to this person going. And I think that's the best way to possibly go about it. So that's exactly what we're going to do. I'm excited for this. I'm not excited to talk about the first couple of weeks, because like I said, it's pretty cool to get into. But are you ready? Are we ready to do this finally?
Yes, I am.
All right, so we're just going to go ahead and get started. So the first week of this season, I will say right now, is hands down one of the worst weeks in Big Brother history. Everything that happened, it just felt like it was piling on. It felt like it was almost nonstop. It started off bad, and then it just kind of escalated and got worse and worse as it went on. But thankfully, it ended in probably the best possible outcome we could have had, in that we get our technical first boots of one of the most unlikable and just disgusting house guests we've ever seen in this game, and that's Paloma, who really weird to talk about right off the bat, because I know that going into the season, she was actually one of the people we were most looking forward to. And
we thought, like, we literally thought she was going to just be like very like all about girl power, and we thought she'd be really nice, but
wow, technically she was, but not quite in the way that you would want her to. Because let's talk about
I don't even think it was real. It was probably very fake.
Oh, very much not. Because Paloma starts off this season, honestly, in a pretty strong position. Everyone seems to really like her. Everyone seems to really want to work with her and things like that. She's very close with like Alyssa in the game. And it was like, okay, Paloma and Alyssa, they are a bit delusional, but it's, they think they have everyone wrapped around their finger, but they really didn't. And it seemed like at first I was like, okay, this is kind of funny. They're like the delusional duo and things like that. But of course, the big thing that really just brings her down, and this is the same with a lot of people this season, is just her incredible just complete mistreatment and utter just bullying towards Taylor is just so disgusting to watch. She starts off just immediately thinking that Taylor is someone that just really doesn't like her. She doesn't like the way that she is flaunting off her like winner's outfit, even though people were telling her to. She doesn't like the way that she's talking to people. She thinks Taylor comes across as very condescending. There are a lot of other just microaggressions she has towards her, and it all boils up into her basically trying to turn the entire house against Taylor, and Taylor becoming this social pariah, not because of anything that she did, but because the house just had this like herd mob mentality. And look, there are a lot of players that are responsible for it. I don't think it's a stretch to say like Paloma's the head of the snake in terms of this. Like, I think if Paloma was not in the house, I do think things start off very differently. And I think she was the catalyst for a lot of what went down, because she kept pushing all these different narratives about Taylor. And it just got to a point where it was like, I don't even want to fucking watch this anymore, because all she's doing is just constantly just bringing her up and tearing her down. And it'd be different if Taylor did something to warrant this, like if she came off as like she was overplaying or things like that. But it's literally all personal. It's all personal. They're judging things like like I said, just how she talks to people. They're judging if she's like sincere with how much she cares about people. You know, you have like Daniel saying things like Taylor doesn't deserve to live normal and things like that, which is absolutely disgusting. So many just horrible, just horrifically personal and straight up microaggressive things about her are said. Even the way that she walks, they have a problem with. It's just absolutely disgusting, and I think Paloma contributed heavily to all of that. And it's just that's really what just makes that first week so hard to watch, is seeing them all just like immediately turn against Taylor, not try to verify anything from her. And then if they do, all they do is basically just like twist her words and make it seem like a lot worse what she said. So yeah, I mean, that's week one. It was amazing how, you know, things started off with it starting so low, but then it's so satisfying when we get to the end. But, you know, before we get into that, I mean, what do you really want to say about this week overall and just the horrible stuff Paloma contributed to? The entire house, but Paloma especially.
Oh God, this week was so rough. Like just everything that was said, like everything you named, like and even more, just really pissed me off. It made me disgusted. To quote Rockstar, disgusting. It was just it was ridiculous. And like Paloma, we thought was gonna be the sweet girl, but nope, she really wasn't. She was a fake bitch. Who like literally she just like thought the worst of certain people. Taylor for sure, but like other people too. Like she just thought the worst in them when she didn't even get to know them.
Well, it was mainly Taylor. I wouldn't say the other people she was like, she had like vitriol towards. It was mainly just Taylor.
Yeah.
Because the other thing we didn't talk about with Paloma is there is this whole alliance that is basically created all because she basically comes to this conclusion that Taylor is not a girl's girl. Just
that was so stupid.
That Taylor isn't bonding with the girls when the girls basically ostracized her anyway, and they didn't give her a chance. Obviously, she was going to go towards the guys because of the fact that the girls weren't giving her that shot. So
it literally that annoyed me so much. That like made all of us root for start rooting for the guys.
Yeah, literally, because like normally we want to root for the women, but the women were like the worst in the beginning of the season. Like they were the absolute worst. All of them were so fucking mean towards Taylor. Mm-hmm. They didn't give her a chance. They just assumed things about her. And what pisses me off is that nobody tried to verify anything with her. Nobody tried to co-sign anything. It was just like nobody tried to see if maybe this was wrong. Nobody tried to get to know her for themselves. And if they did, they immediately turned their back on her. It was such a bad way to start off this season. I have never seen a week that feels like a season of Big Brother just through a couple days. I've never seen it happen this way before. Because yes, obviously the first week is usually very eventful, but I've never seen it get to the low that it did so quickly like it did this season, to the point where we just didn't even want to watch anymore because it was like, is this what the whole season is going to be?
Yeah, this beginning was so low. It was just very gross. Like, usually they're eventful and fun, but not this season. This first week was just gross.
Yeah, it was really fucking hard to watch. Not to mention we have such a terrible HOH reign from Daniel, who we'll talk about a little bit later on, but he makes probably one of the worst possible moves he could have, and not even trying to do something for his game. He just targets Taylor, even though he said that he wasn't going to, and he said that like he didn't want her out. He changes his trajectory entirely, mainly just due to the fact that he thinks he needs to do this. He thinks that the house is going to love him if he targets her and things like that. It's just so gross to watch. And so, yeah, the first week is so rough, but thankfully it does end on a great note, all leading to this outcome where, because the other thing we didn't talk about with Paloma is that though, yes, she is this terrible person, she was also not well, like mentally. There was something wrong with her. There was clearly something going on with her mentally.
Yeah, didn't she like need her like meds or something?
Well, there's a lot more going on than just that. She would say things in the house. You know, it started off with her saying something like, oh, I want to split the prize money through all of us. Like if I win the game, all of you are going to win. I want all of us to win together and things like that. Then she would start to say things like, I think she talked about aliens being real at one point. I think she talked about all this crazy stuff. The most memorable for me is when she talks about how like she thinks that she's living in like Inception and that the whole game is like a dream or something. I don't know what was going on with her this season, but she was off her fucking rocker. And so I do kind of wonder, and I have this question for you. Do you think even if she didn't get pulled after that first week, do you think she even lasts that long in the house?
No, she probably would have been like second or third boot.
Yeah, because I think she would have spiraled regardless. She was already spiraling like at that point. And we don't know what happened. Like there's a lot of speculation out there that basically they told her to leave, but then they framed it as her walking. Some people think that, maybe she just had like this complete mental breakdown and they just pulled her because of that. We don't really know what happened, but the best possible outcome for this week is her leaving first and getting out of that house, completely changing the narrative of this season. And it should be noted that I think regardless of whether or not she leaves, Taylor was not going to be first boot because they had that twist of the boss battle and her, and we saw in the competition where she was against Alyssa, she completely beasted it and it wasn't even particularly close between the two of them. So yeah, I mean, Taylor wasn't going to leave regardless, but I do think Paloma leaving first not only perfectly sets the tone for this season of Taylor's karma, essentially, which is a lot of people were pushing, but also just perfectly changing the trajectory of the season almost immediately in a way that we just haven't really seen before. So anything else you want to say about Paloma before we move on to week 2? Or end this week overall?
I'm just very glad with how this week ended because, like, she just needs. Big Brother is not for her, and she's just not a good person. And she should just go back to her house and just focus on her life and just I'm just very glad she quit.
Yeah, I mean, again, well, here's the thing. Again, we don't know if it was a quit. We don't know if she was pulled. We don't really know what happened.
Or pulled, whatever she got.
Regardless, it was great to see. Okay, it wasn't great to see the way everyone acted when she left, crying like she was like a family member or something when they had only known her for a few days. Especially considering how Taylor was crying that exact same way and was being just as emotional because of her going on the block, and they just like completely just like basically just like ignored her because of it and said that she did it to herself. It really just showed everybody's true colors. But it was very satisfying to see the moment where she is pulled, and then immediately there's this boss battle that happens, and Taylor wins against Alyssa in a landslide in the competition. It was great to see. So yeah, it was easily one of the weakest week one, like easily one of the roughest first weeks we've ever seen in the show. But I do think it ended on a much better note and really kind of set in motion what was going to happen in this game, which was not at all, I think, what people were expecting. And I think that's what works so well about this season is just how much they turned around just through Paloma leaving.
Oh yeah, definitely. So it like really changed the game.
It really did. So yeah, I don't want to dwell too much on week 1. It is one of the worst weeks of the entire show. I honestly don't think it is I don't think it is over exaggerating to say it is some of the most uncomfortable I've ever felt watching Big Brother. It is some of the most disgusting stuff I have ever seen in Big Brother. It really just kind of makes you think about, though, yes, the show has implemented the 50%, the 50% range in POCs and trying to incorporate, and trying to incorporate more Black people, trying to incorporate more Asian, people, or more Asian representation and things like that. It really shows that even though they have done that, they still have a lot of work to do in terms of
they do.
Like that, in terms of like making sure that the people they cast are safe for those in that, for for the people in the house that for those in the house that they do cast in that 50% range. Like, it's just, there's a lot that they need. There's a lot of work they still have to do, like casting wise, and I think this first week, and particularly the entire season, is like very emblematic of that.
Like, Big Brother US has a lot of work to do with casting.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I wouldn't just say Big Brother US in general. I would just say Big Brother in general and reality TV in general have a lot of work to do. And I think this season very much reminds us of that. So, with that said, let's go on to the second week here with the technical actual first boo of the game, because he's the only one to actually receive. He's the first one to receive votes, whereas Paloma walked from the game. We have Pooch from... Pooch is the second boot from this season.
What was his name? What was his name? Actual name?
I don't know. Joe, I think. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Chef Joe.
I don't know what that was. But
I was just being silly.
But that's not even how he talks.
I'm Pooch. I don't even remember him.
Yeah, no, he's very forgettable, and easily I think one of the most foolish players in the entire show, because basically Jasmine wins HOH, and immediately wants to target Taylor, because the girl everyone's obsessed with her this season. That's the main thing. We want to get Taylor out. We don't really care why. We want to target her. We want to make sure she goes. Everyone's like, trying to get their justice for Paloma, even though Taylor had fucking nothing to do with that. That's not why Paloma ended up leaving, which is ridiculous. But basically this season, there is this coalition of women of sorts that come together. At this point, they are very much running the show, which still was like very hard to watch because we're not rooting for these people. We want them to fail and things like that. They all just said all these nasty things about Taylor, and the fact that they're still continuing to say nasty things about her. And the fact that they are in power was just like, yeah, but it turned to actually be a really fun end of the week, because basically we have Nicole and it's Nicole and Amira really team up here, and basically they make this plan where they are going to, because basically Taylor is the target, but they just need a pawn. Pooch voluntarily goes up because he thinks he's going to be fine against Taylor. He wants to take one for the team. He thinks he's going to be this hero. If he's like, I'm all hot shit. Yeah, he thinks he's going to put himself in this amazing position. Mind you, he has done very little to like insulate himself in the house. He has done very little to actually like put himself in a good spot. Like, if I remember correctly, there was an alliance that he was in with, like, I think it was like Monty and a bunch of the girls, and they kicked him out of it because of the fact that like they didn't trust him, and they put Monty in. Or I don't really remember what it was, but like, yes, he was not in a good position at all here. There's an alliance of sorts that's made, basically like, and I forgot what it was called. It was like Pound something. I forgot what it was called. But he was involved with that, and basically he wants to like be the hero and go up, and he thinks that he's going to, he's going to survive, and Taylor's going to go, and it's going to be this amazing story. Only for him to not realize that the very people that were on his side are trying to actually target him and blindside him this week. And to be honest, it is just glorious to watch. The complete overconfidence and the complete ambivalence he has to going on the block is just so funny to see here. The way that he is so willing.
This man is not even a good player.
Most of the people this season are not good players. But he's so willing to go on the block just because the fact that he thinks he's going to be fine. He doesn't even campaign, from what I remember. He thinks he's just going to survive basically because of his ego. And for him to then leave unanimously, it is just amazing to watch. And I love every single second of seeing that eviction play out and how that all panned out and things like that. But definitely a much more interesting week to talk about. Still not the greatest week, but I do think it ends in a really fun outcome with him basically just like everyone just like voting him out and him being so shocked that it happened because of the fact that like he again was so like ambivalent to the fact that he was on the block and thought he would be fine. What do you want to say about this week overall?
Well, this man is so like unlikable, but he's also just like so forgettable because like I barely remember much about him at all.
Yeah.
Like him just volunteering, thinking he was confident in staying. Like, come on, sir, that's so stupid.
Yeah, he literally, and he probably wasn't even gonna go up if he didn't volunteer. That's what's so funny. Like no one even had him in mind.
Yeah, so it's like he's so ditzy. But like, yeah, this week was just like I don't remember a ton of it. Just like him leaving unanimously. Ugh, chef's kiss.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, obviously not the best week either, but definitely better than around week 1.
Yeah, it definitely was still like, this is still kind of boring. This is not very interesting. But I do think him leaving when he does, it end things on a good note because it's like, okay, Taylor's karma is like really coming into effect here where like literally she goes on the block, the person who's against her always goes. And that's exactly what happened. And for most of them, it actually does end up being almost unanimous every single time whenever she's on the block. It's just, you know, which really is just emblematic of her social game and her, you know, strategic prowess and things like that. And, you know, things like that. But I think Pooch in particular is just one of the biggest fucking meatheads we've seen in the house. He fits the archetype perfectly of like this like macho dude who thinks that he can just kind of coast on his likability. He can coast on his physical appearance. He can coast on the fact that he's so like charismatic in that way, but he's so incredibly delusional of where he actually was in the house. He has such a fundamental misunderstanding of how to actually play the game. Like, especially week 2, you do not volunteer for the block. That is just not something you do this early.
No.
And here's the thing, if you're going to do that, you have to do it under the assumption that the people that are in your alliance are good with you. And the fact that he didn't try to do any of that, I mean, it was just so funny to watch and to see him go in such a spectacular in such a spectacular you know, downfall with him leaving unanimously. I mean, it was amazing to watch. So yeah, I mean, he stays, Taylor survives. I mean, he leaves, Taylor survives. That's what's important. I don't think we have much more to say about Pooch. She's you know, as people have said.
Like, also, why was he called Pooch?
Because that's, I mean, we don't. I mean, why was Rockstar called Rockstar?
Because she's a queen.
Why was you know, why was like why are most people in the house called what they are? Why was Dr. Will called Dr. Will? Like there's all kinds of like nicknames for it. Yes, that's not really synonymous with Pooch, so I don't think we really need to get into that. But well, we do need to get it. But yeah, I mean, I don't really have much else to say about this week. It was pretty hilarious to watch the outcome of it. But other than that, I mean, not really a ton to talk about here. So yeah, moving on to, I think, what is easily one of the best weeks in modern Big Brother. We don't usually get to see what happens in week 3, especially this game. We don't usually get to see something like this. We don't usually get to see such a huge overthrowing of power in the way we do in week 3, but thankfully that is what we get here. Now, before we get into what happens in week 3, there was a twist introduced in week 3, and I want to get your take on it because I have my thoughts. I'll give my thoughts in a little bit, but we are told that there's going to be this new twist. It's called the Festy Bestie twist.
Yeah, that's what it was called.
Yes, it starts on week 3, and basically the way that it's going to work is if you nominate someone, you're not nominating one person, you are nominating their pair. Everyone is in pairs. They're playing as pairs, kind of not. It's not like they're playing together necessarily, but like if you win HOH, your partner also safe. If you're on the block, your partner also goes up. And then they do this really weird thing as well, where if you then survive, somebody can then join you, your whichever team they want and things like that. I don't know. It's really weird. And I think there's a lot of it that just doesn't really work for me at all. And we'll talk about, how it ended as a twist. But what did you think of this twist overall?
It was definitely something. You go ahead.
Oh, you don't have anything else to say?
You go first.
Oh, I was gonna have you go first.
No, it's okay.
Okay. I mean, what I was gonna say about this twist is I think on paper, this twist is fucking horrible. Like, this is everything that we hate about modern Big Brother to a T. And, it's the kind of twist that basically forces alliances to stick together. It puts people in this amazing position to where, oh, well, as long as we're safe for the week, we're fine. We just have to keep winning HOHs. We just have to keep winning because we also forgot to mention, if you win veto, your partner is also safe. Neither you or your partner can go up on the block. So there's such an easy way to game this. And I don't know about you, but I always judge Big Brother twists based on how easy it is to game and how easy it is to just make a complete and utter bore and not feel like any sort of novelty whatsoever and completely just benefit the players. And that's exactly what the Festy Bestie twist does. All you have to do in order to survive this twist is make a mega alliance, make sure that you are in power and you're winning HOH and those people stick together, and make sure that the person who's winning veto also is in that alliance, and then you guys are going to be fine. And then you just pick off like whoever is on the bottom, essentially. And that's what I thought this twist was really going to be. I thought this was going to be horrible. I thought this was really going to benefit like the girls and the pound or whatever to like really stick together. I thought that's what was going to happen here, but thankfully it doesn't go that way at all. We'll talk about what actually ends up happening this week, but yeah, this twist on paper, I think is terrible. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, I definitely didn't hate it, but I didn't love it either. It was just interesting, I guess. Like I just thought it was just it's definitely one that's like hard to game.
No, it's easy to game. It's easy to game.
Sorry, no, easy to game. But like at least it works. It doesn't work out for the people we hate. So
yeah, that's the thing, is that I think on paper this twist sounded horrible.
But it's definitely like it's probably one of the worst twists that they've had, but not like the worst. It was definitely down there, but definitely not.
So for me,
I would say it's down there. It's one of the worst, but it's not the worst in the world.
On paper, yes, it is definitely one of the worst. But I think with how it actually plays out, it ends up not being too bad because of the way things end up playing out here, where we'll just get into it. This is one of the most historic week 3s, I think, in Big Brother in a very long time. We start off with Turner winning HOH, which was not great because he was very much on that side of like wanting Taylor out and wanting to target her as soon as possible. But there are a few factors in completely just changing the trajectory of the game, because he starts off and he does, in fact, nominate Brittany and Michael. He wants Brittany and Michael to go. He thinks Michael's a really big threat. Michael's winning, been winning a ton of vetoes and things like that. But he also knows that Brittany and Michael are really the only people like attached to Taylor at this point. They're the only people that seem to like be giving her any sort of grace, be giving her, which even them we'll talk about in a little bit. I have thoughts on Brittany and Michael and why they also are not the greatest people. But they also are very, they're the only ones that are like kind of giving Taylor a chance, essentially. And that's kind of the reason why Turner is targeting them, but also because of the fact that Turner, and it's also because of the fact that Michael is viewed as like such a huge threat in that way and things like that. But essentially what ends up happening is, it seems like that's how it's going to go. And then there are two major events that end up happening. The first one involves Kyle. Kyle ends up in this relationship with Alyssa. They end up getting very close. Alyssa gets a little bit drunk, and she ends up slipping some information to him that she really shouldn't have done, where basically she reveals that the girls are working together and that there is this alliance of sorts that is very much in power, and that Pooch was basically supposed to go. She reveals that he's not in the position that he thinks he's in. And it kind of gets this light bulb in his head where he's like, oh my God, wait, no, there is this group of sorts that's forming and this doesn't benefit me. Like, we need to pivot immediately. So that ends up happening, and that ends up being a really big factor in the game. But the second thing that ends up happening this week is a lot less fun to talk about. It is this exchange of sorts that goes down with Nicole, who, let me just say, we'll get to Nicole in a little bit, but Nicole literally only partners with Taylor because she thinks that she'd be fine against her. She thinks that if she sticks to Taylor, then if she's going to go on the block, then she will be fine and Taylor will go. And she basically is willing to sacrifice. She doesn't actually want to partner with her. She doesn't actually want to work with her. Whereas Taylor actually wants to try to work on something with Nicole. She sees a connection there. She sees a possibility in them moving forward in the game and things like that. Whereas Nicole is completely discounting Taylor. She just wants her out of this game. She thinks that if she is on the block with her, she thinks that she's going to be fine. She thinks she has to be like the sacrificial lamb of sorts and things like that, which is just absolutely disgusting. But things get awful. Things escalate even further when Nicole basically mentions that, I think it was that like her mom was sick or something like that, and she was really having a hard time focusing on the game while not also focusing on her mom. And so Taylor does the admirable thing of basically telling her that, hey, some things are beyond the game. If you want to tap out at any point, like, I will respect it. I don't think the house is going to hold against you. I don't think the house is going to come after you. Like, I don't think the house is going to, hold you to that. I think they'll completely understand if you need to walk away from the game. Basically just trying to extend a hand and be like, listen, I'm here for you if you need anything. This is one of Taylor's best traits, I think, is that she always tries to look at everyone with the best of intentions. She always tries to be a friend to people. She always tries to approach every situation with the grace, with the courtesy, with the niceness that honestly is usually the person does not deserve, but she still extends that hand because she wants to be that bigger person. She's not going to let them, walk all over her. She's not going to let them, she's going to prove to them that she is not how they are making her out to be. She's going to prove that she's the complete opposite of that. And any thought of them perceiving her in that way is horrible. But instead, Nicole takes this completely the wrong way. Nicole sees this as she is trying to use this for a game. She's trying to get Nicole to quit. She's using her mom's, hospitalization as a way to play the game and things like that, which is not at all what she was doing. This goes to Daniel. Daniel starts freaking out. He goes off on Taylor. Taylor at first thinks he's joking about Lay's, which is, that's what's going on there. But no, he goes on this whole tirade about how she's the reason Paloma left, and now she's doing the same thing to Nicole. And it is just easily one of the most disgusting moments of the entire season. It's laughable because of just how fucking pathetic Daniel and Nicole are, but it's also disgusting just the things that Daniel is saying to Taylor and the fact that he is still having such vitriol against her when at this point, most of the house has moved on from it. It's really disgusting to watch.
Daniel and Nicole are the worst, two of the worst.
Definitely.
Remember when we thought we would like them preseason, and nope.
Yeah.
They were just really, that was so bad.
Yeah. There's this fight of sorts that goes down between it's not even a fight, really. It's very one-sided because, like I said, as usual, Taylor is approaching this as peacefully as she possibly can. She doesn't understand where any of this is coming from. And it's really the only time that she has said, like it's one of the worst things that happens the entire season for her. She's mentioned, I think she said this was like the hardest points of the season for her. The things that she was being accused of were just really hard for her to even fathom. She herself just had a really hard time playing the game at this point. And understandable because, again, I want to reiterate, all she was doing was trying to be a friend to Nicole, trying to say to her, look, there are things that happen that are more important than the game. And I completely understand if you want to tap out. I completely understand if like you want to walk away or anything like that. Like, it happens. She was trying to tell her, like, don't feel bad if you need to leave the game. Somehow that turns into Taylor trying to get Nicole to quit, which is not at all what she was doing. And the fact that anyone would think that is fucking baffling to me. And the fact that Daniel would say the things he is to her is just disgusting to me. And just, what do you have to say about all this?
Absolutely horrid. It was, this season is like, or that this like beginning was like just awful. Like, I'm sorry, it's just really rough for me to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it just makes me really uncomfortable.
I mean, yeah, but we still have to talk about it regardless because
I know. I just feel bad for Taylor.
I mean, I do too. I definitely do feel bad as well, but it's also like we can't pretend it didn't happen because it's something that we need to talk about.
Like Nicole was just too attached to like other people that weren't good people, and Taylor just trying to be her friend.
Yeah, exactly. But let's,
of course. But I'm glad. I will say I'm glad Nicole is like done with those people, though.
Essentially, potentially.
I think she is.
I don't really know, to be honest with you. I know she apologized to Taylor, so there's that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know if it was like actually sincere. I don't know if it was like, I mean, Taylor seemed to forgive her. So, I think that's what's important is that, but Taylor also is somebody that, again, tries to look at like the best qualities in people and things like that. And we've seen that a lot throughout the entire season. But of course, we got to talk about the thing that this leads to, one of the biggest coups in Big Brother history, where basically Kyle runs to, I believe it was at first like Joseph. It was like Joseph, Kyle, and Kyle talks to himself. It was like Joseph, Monty, and I believe Michael. And he talks about all the things that Alyssa told him. And eventually and Joseph really speaks for the fact that like there's somebody else who's been going through a really rough time. And I think she really needs people on her side. So they pull Taylor in, and this compounded with all the information that Kyle receives basically gets them to form this new alliance. It's basically between Monty, Joseph, Michael, Brittany, Turner, who's the HOH at the time, and Taylor. They decide that we're not going to take this anymore, and they form this alliance known as the Leftovers. They are going to do what they can to try to overthrow the people that are in power. And we get this great moment where Taylor talks about like she's been looking for people on her side. And it is such an amazing moment to watch, seeing how all of that is formed and how things are finally turning around for the season. I mean, this was the moment where I was like, shit, maybe we should actually try to catch up, because it seems like things are actually getting really exciting here. I mean, what did you think of like this alliance forming?
Oh, I thought it was amazing. I wasn't crazy about having Kyle there.
Well, at the time we didn't dislike Kyle yet.
Ish. But I was very happy about this alliance overall, though, because it was actually putting Taylor in a way better position. Mm-hmm. And it's just been way more incredible.
Yeah, for sure. So what ends up happening is this basically wakes Turner up entirely. He goes from wanting to target, I believe it was going to be, he was going to target, he was going to target Nicole and Taylor. That was the plan. He was going to backdoor them, and that's what he was going to do. But through forming the leftovers, Turner realizes, wait, I need to pivot here. This doesn't benefit me. If I'm doing this, this is giving Ameerah the win, because Ameerah was the mastermind behind all of this. Ameerah was the one who was instrumental in Pooch leaving. Ameerah was instrumental in making sure that Pooch left unanimously. Ameerah was instrumental in, forming different alliances and things like that. And so they realize what they need to do is take down the person that is the biggest threat in the house, and that is Ameerah. And so what Turner does is he has this great speech, which from what I've heard, you can't really give Turner the credit for, because Joseph basically told him to say this. So Joseph, I would give the credit to for this speech. Turner just was just the mouthpiece for it, essentially. But basically Turner says, I'm not going to stand for the bullying in this house anymore. I shouldn't be the one to say this as the youngest person in the house, but it's not okay. And really just shows how much he is going to turn things around as he nominates Ameerah and Terrence, completely just overthrowing everything that has happened into the game at this point, getting the power away from that side. And we get such a glorious blindside here that does, of course, lead to, where is it?
Leftovers!
No, we already talked about the leftovers.
Well, that too, but
no, it leads to Ameerah leaving this week.
Well, yeah, but like the leftovers is perfect.
Which was it's not perfect. There's a lot of people in there I don't like, but
not perfect humans, just a perfect alliance.
It's definitely like the ideal alliance that you always kind of hope for in Big Brother.
Exactly.
But it does lead to Ameerah leaving. Just what an incredible story this was for Ameerah, who, from what I remember, also did not campaign, thought she was going to be fine, thought that Terrence was.
I think she did.
From what I remember, she didn't.
Because I think she like try and talk to like Taylor and stuff.
She did, but she didn't talk to like enough people. Like she thought
I think she
had she assumed she had votes.
Yeah, I think she assumed she had certain people, and then she just talked to the people that she didn't know for sure.
Yeah, but yeah, let's just talk about this whole week real quick with Ameerah. Somebody else that I thought did have some potential coming in, but just really showed that she is just a complete and utter flop. She also said some really nasty things about Taylor throughout the season. No surprise, basically anyone that's not named Joseph did. Yeah, I mean, she was just horrible at the game. I think it's so funny in week 2 when she's like, Big Brother's really easy. I think I can really kill this season. I think I really have a handle of how things are going. And then is just completely awestruck at her being targeted. It is just, you can't make this stuff up. You can't make this stuff up. It is so great to watch. It's exactly the kind of blindside that we always hope for in modern Big Brother, and the kind of thing that like we want to see but never actually happens. And the fact that it actually happened was just incredible to watch. Just all around, this was easily one of the best weeks pre-jury, I think, in any modern Big Brother season in a very long time. Is there anything else you want to say before we before we go to the next one?
Of course I do. This week I'm so happy that she left, because honestly, Ameerah is someone that I thought her and Taylor, like at the beginning, I thought they were gonna like team up and be this like power duo. And like, but Ameerah is definitely the biggest disappointment.
Yeah.
Because she said some really bad things, like, and she was literally colorist.
Mm-hmm.
And like she doesn't like people of her own color.
Yeah.
And which is really fucked up and awful. And she was just not a nice person. Like she was not the person we thought she was gonna be. And like we were so wrong about that. Thinking they were gonna be a power duo, which like this was just she's just frustrating so much, and she never even apologized. And
she's one of the few that hasn't. I think.
Yeah, she's just one of the few that's just like not owning up to her shit. And I guess she's just one of those people who stays hypocritical and just stays petty. And biggest disappointment and so frustrating to watch. So like her leaving was glorious.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's the kind of blindside that, like I said, you really just want to see. The fact that now we have this alliance that's in power, and we're rooting for them because of the fact that like they are not in power at the point, but they're trying to like take their power back. Essentially, it's exactly what we want to see in Modern Big Brother, and I think we got to see it play out to its fullest potential through this week. It was one of the greatest weeks in Modern Big Brother history. And I think it's going to be a week that people remember fondly. Like when they think about this season, I do think this is, besides the win we get, I think this will be one of the first things they think about, and rightfully so, because it was definitely an incredible moment to watch. So yeah, week 3, like I said, really just turned things around in an amazing way. And it's pretty crazy how this week plays out, because we get a very similar week almost immediately after that, a very similar kind of blindside, but a different kind of blindside, in Nicole being the next person to leave, Mira's closest ally, the two of them going back to back. Again, in just such spectacular fashion, is amazing to watch. Week 4, Monty gets HOH, puts up Alyssa and Indy. And basically, you know, he is in this position where now it's just about, we got to get Nicole out. That's all this is about now. We got to, I believe it was, they were trying to target Daniel at first, and they were trying to make sure that Daniel ended up leaving, which we also should say, after Nicole, after surviving this week, Terrence goes to Monty and Joseph. And so now he's safe with the 3 of them because of the fact that Terrence survived. That's the other part of this twist that I'm just not a huge fan of. I don't like the fact that they get to choose who they are partners with after they're saved. I think that it should be just whoever survived, and then whoever I think it should be like whoever survived from that duo has to maybe work with the person that was targeted initially. I don't know. I think there are different ways they could have done it, because the way they did it, again, it just feels very unfair, because you basically get to choose who you want to be partners with, and whether, you know, you do it for strategic reasons or because you like that person. Just not a huge fan of that. But again, a lot of twists in Big Brother are just very flawed. This is just another example of that. But yeah, week 4, Monty wins HOH here. He puts up Alyssa and Indy, at first wanting Daniel and Kyle to be the targets, but Daniel and Kyle end up winning the veto, and Daniel makes one of the dumbest fucking moves I have seen in and look, there's a lot of dumb moves this season, but this might be the dumbest move of the entire season, where he wins veto. He has the potential to not use it and make sure that he'll be fine, and things like that. He, you know, thinks that he's going to be okay. He could have just chosen to not use the veto here because he's not on the block. It's Alyssa and Indy that are on the block. And from what I understand, Alyssa was going to go if he didn't do that. But he decides that apparently saving Alyssa and Indy is more important than saving his number 1 ally, who is targeted, and who he was. And here's the thing: Daniel was
so stupid.
Daniel is told repeatedly, you can use the veto, but if you do, Nicole is going to go on the block. And he's like, they're not actually going to do that. They're tricking me. This isn't actually what's going on. And he looks like an absolute clown, because what happens, he used the veto, and lo and behold, Nicole and Taylor go on the block. And what do you think about this move?
Oh, it was so stupid.
Yeah.
It was honestly laughable, because like he has no strategic sense. Like, he should have realized his closest ally would go on the block. So it's like, oh my god, like this man, like what goes through his head? Um, like, like he wasn't even working with Indy or Alyssa.
No. And literally,
So
well, here's the thing. Not even that. Nicole was the only person that was like vouching for him at this point. Like it was like Daniel and Nicole versus the entire house.
Literally nobody liked him.
Yeah, and like he had an opportunity to like save Nicole here, and he didn't. And it's entirely on him that she ended up leaving. So yeah, just one of the worst moves I think you could possibly make. I think it's probably one of the worst moves, maybe the worst move of the entire season. There are a lot of terrible moves this season, but I think this might have been the absolute worst because no surprise here. Nicole ends up leaving basically unanimously. I think only person that doesn't end up leaving, that doesn't end up voting for Nicole, no surprise, is Daniel. Obviously, he votes for Taylor because he has this.
He could have prevented that if he was smart.
Well, we didn't want Taylor to go.
I mean, no. Well, no, like if he was smart and didn't use veto.
Yeah.
Like Alyssa or Indy would have left.
Yeah, he could have easily combated that happening, and he just completely chose not to. But yeah, Nicole leaves here. Taylor does what she does and gives such an amazing speech. It's one of the best. All of her speeches this season are incredible, but I think the one with Nicole in particular is one to definitely remember. Her telling Nicole that she's just here to like give them what, get what she needs and things like that. Her saying that, she has, she's not ready to leave yet and things like that. I mean, it was such an incredible speech from her. But yeah, Nicole ends up leaving here. Thoughts on Nicole real quick before we transition to what happens next.
This woman is also another disappointment.
Oh yeah.
Because she's just a very nasty person and nasty individual. I mean, I'm glad she at least apologized to Taylor. She owned up to that, but like she was just awful in the house. Definitely one of the worst. And like her teaming up with Daniel, they were terrible. They literally are perfect for each other. They're perfect for each other in that sense because they are both nasty. And like, just very disappointing individual. And like, because she could have been so good if she wasn't problematic and rude.
Mm-hmm. That's the thing. I think she did show potential.
I mean, it was Taylor's karma. Like literally,
yeah.
She was not protected by her closest ally, and Taylor's karma got her.
That's the thing. If, like I said, there's always a common denominator here in terms of who ends up leaving, and almost all of the time it is Taylor. Like it is they're not being able to let go of this hatred and this vitriol they have towards Taylor. They aren't able to get rid of that tunnel vision, and the game just like ends up getting behind them because of it. They just lose sight of the game entirely. And that's really, I think, emblematic of Nicole here, who I do think had potential as a player. There were moments early on in the season where she did show potential. But one, she completely worked with the wrong people. Like, that's definitely her biggest mistake, is that the people she worked with did not benefit her in any way, shape, or form. Two, it was the fact that she, again, just could not let go of her hatred towards Taylor and the way that she felt towards Taylor. She could not let go of it. And because of that, she ended up getting sniped, and it was amazing to watch. So yeah, Nicole sucks. I hope that she was sincere in her apology. According to Taylor, it seemed like she was. I do question, I'll be honest with you guys, I do question the majority of the apologies from people if they were just doing it because Taylor was victorious this season and things like that. Would they still give her that apology? Or if she had gone earlier, would they have just like completely written her off? That is something.
Yeah, like their apologies are better when they're actually genuine.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm questioning whether or not it actually was. But regardless, she apologized, and there is that. There's some people you can't say that for this season.
Exactly.
But yeah, Nicole sucks. We're going to go ahead and move on here to what ends up being one of the more straightforward weeks of this season, and one we're not going to spend a ton of time on. We get week 5 here, where Michael wins HOH, nominates Joseph, Monty, and Terrence. And the plan is basically for the plan pretty much is for Daniel and Kyle to be targeted here. Daniel and Kyle to be, they're the ones that are going to be nominated. Kyle tries to talk Michael out of it because he's worried that he's going to go and he doesn't want to be on the block and things like that. But Michael is very adamant. He does not want, Daniel to, he does not want Daniel to that. Daniel also has had, similar to his hatred for Taylor, he's always had this really weird sort of, he's had this really weird sort of targeting of Michael the entire season for virtually nothing. The way Michael comes in immediately, he thinks that Michael is someone that he needs to be fearful of. He thinks that Michael is somebody that, just gives him really bad vibes. He thinks that Michael is somebody that he needs to target. And so naturally, Michael wants him out, not just because of the fact that Daniel is completely alone at this point, but also the fact that Daniel, again, has had this really weird sort of, hatred towards Michael, and he just doesn't quite understand that. So, naturally, he does want to target Daniel here, and that's exactly what ends up happening. Where the hell is this picture? Where the hell is this picture? Where is it? There he is. So Daniel does end up leaving here. My God, what is there to say about Daniel?
He was another person we didn't even dislike preseason. We thought he would just. What?
It's crazy to think about.
I know. We literally thought he was going to be all like fun and silly and stuff, but nope. Were we wrong?
I have never seen a player that has so much potential and has so many chances to like not just to go against the grain and to play his own game and to put himself in a better position, but just again, because of his, and I keep saying with everybody, because of the fact that he has such, he's just so fixated on, we got to get Taylor out. We got to get Taylor out. We got to get Taylor out. Taylor's the problem. Taylor's the problem. It completely clouds his entire game. He just can't let go of that. Like he just can't let go of this sort of, needing to target her. He's so insistent upon it. And because of that, he ends up going here. And once again, such a spectacular downfall. The way everything played out with Daniel was so glorious to watch. He calls them all boring on his way out. He talks about how Michael is somebody they need to be fearful of because Michael's won 5 competitions. He wasn't wrong about that. I'll say that. He wasn't wrong about the threats.
I mean, yeah, that's actually something smart, but like still.
Other than that, I mean, just what a flop all around. What an absolute flop. It also should be noted, he's one of the only people postseason that still holds the same sort of nature towards Taylor, still holds so much against Taylor. He still thinks he's in the right for everything that he did. He still is defending himself to this very day. And the fact that he's doing that, it just really shows the kind of person that he is. And I think out of everybody in the house, he's probably the worst, if I'm being honest. Like, there's so many people that are just so disgusting this season. Daniel probably is the worst of them all, if I really
he is, because, like, he's still bitter and petty on Twitter and stuff. And like, there's Turner who always, like, trolls him.
I love when he does that.
It's so funny.
It gives me so much life.
Literally, Turner's such a troll. Like, it's so funny.
Really, yeah.
Like Daniel, he's just a disgusting human all around, and like he's problematic. He says the disgusting and ridiculous things. Like he's not even funny. Like we thought he was going to be, but nope.
No, he's horrible.
All around an awful person. And
his weird like obsession with like Paloma as well. Like I think he said like after the scenes, like the first thing I want to do is like give her a hug and meet her when she like wanted nothing to do with him. It's just really weird. It's really weird all around.
It was so weird.
Yeah, there's just
because isn't he like way older than her?
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah. But it's also the fact that like she never seemed to care about him like at all.
No, she didn't.
Like, she didn't really have any, like, it's not even that she disliked him, is that I think she was like so indifferent towards him. It's like, it just makes it really fucking creepy to watch.
Yeah, I don't think Paloma liked him at all.
No, definitely not. But yeah, Daniel sucks. It was great to see him finally go, and what I think ends up being one of the best pre-juries in Big Brother history. Just everyone that ended up leaving, and it's kind of ironic how it happened, because it started off so bad, but everyone who ended up leaving, you know, by the end, it's like, okay, great. This is perfect. This is exactly what we wanted.
Yeah,
All of the
literally everyone who left were disgusting trash.
Yeah, they were disgusting. They were completely delusional. They thought that they had all this power that they didn't have. And again, common denominator in all of this is Taylor, them constantly wanting to target Taylor, them not being able to let go of their resentment towards Taylor when she did literally nothing to any of them. You know, I just can't keep hammering that home enough. And I think it really just says a lot about this season. One thing I do want to talk about real quick, though, before we get into, you know, the jury portion of this game, is that everything that happens preseason, everything that happens, especially in the first week, it just really goes back to, you know, when people were talking about in BB Can, what was going on with the feeds and them not having the feeds. This season especially really shows why those feeds are so important, because without the feeds, we would not know Taylor's story. The episodes do such a terrible job, especially for the first week, of really painting the picture of what's going on. They make you think Taylor said something. They make you think Taylor did something to like trigger what's happening, you know, to trigger what's happening, when the truth is she did absolutely nothing to cause any of this. They just did it all based off of you know, preconceived notions. They did it all based off of stereotypes that are rooted within, you know, many Black women and things like that. It's all that. And it was so important for us to get to see it play out on the feeds, and just how everyone was like, you know, kind of talk, you know, things about, and I think it sparks a lot of interesting conversations about like groupthink and mob mentality and things like that. And none of those discussions would even be happening if we didn't have the feeds. And so I think it's very important that, you know, that's why when the feeds were being cut on BB Can, that is why people were in such rage about it. That's why people were so upset about it. It wasn't just because, oh, we don't get to see them eat breakfast, or we don't get to see them like discuss things. It was because of things like this. When something really bad happens and we don't know the full context, it's like, it feel, you know, it's not doing that person's story justice, but it also is making it so we never know if what they're being accused of is actually happening, or if people are just being really fucking unfair and disgusting, which is exactly the case for this season. So I just think it's very important to hammer that home.
Yeah, like the feeds are just very important for like anyone, not just this season, but for any season.
But this season in particular, I mean, I think
because,
I even heard,
like especially with like BB Can, like for people, for like people on there, and obviously especially this season too, but just like in general, the feeds are just important for so we can actually know like the full context of what certain things happen, like if there's like drama and fights and stuff, and then we know what
this is not drama. This is much more serious than drama.
Well, yeah, but like, and that's just in general. It's like if there's drama or a fight or something, then we know what happened, and like we actually know the full context, and just not instead of just the bare minimum from edits. And then this is just like super crucial to have the feeds, because literally everyone was terrible to Taylor except for Joseph.
Yeah.
Like, so we actually got to know the story, her story, and her journey, and like she had so much traumatic experiences going on throughout the season, which is just like really heartbreaking to watch, and makes me so sad.
And again, without those feeds, we wouldn't get to see the full extent of that journey. So I think it's just very important to continue to reiterate that, like, Big Brother is nothing without its feeds. Like, this season proves that. They, from what I understand, like this season actually I think was like the most watched feeds they've had in like a long time. So just the idea that BB Can would see that and be like, "Oh, let's cut the feeds," is ridiculous to me. But that's a whole.
It was just. For BB Can, it just made no sense that they did that. Like, I guess they wanted to try something new with digital dailies, but like, they can still have that, but just bring feeds back for next time, just because they are very important. And like, it was definitely not Arissa's decision. Yeah, and I don't think Arissa had much say there.
That's a whole larger discussion, but I just really wanted to bring that up because I remember we were talking about the feeds during BB Can, and we were talking specifically about this season and how important it was for those feeds. And so I think it just, again, Big Brother's nothing without its feeds. You don't get the full context of what happened. Exactly. It would be different if the edit wanted to depict this in the way it happened, but they give a completely fabricated version of events. And I think, if that's all you have to rely on, it's like, what's even the point? That's kind of how I see it. But yeah. So but now we are in the jury phase, and things start off really well immediately when we have this wall comp, and it does result in Taylor winning HOH here, which we were so excited for when that ended up happening. But I will say she does not play great this week. This was not the greatest week for her. I think that she has the things about Taylor that's great is, her social game, the way she's always able to put herself in such a strong position, and also her being, the strategic side of her is really good. But once she gets into power, it just doesn't quite go the way that she hopes for, because
this week she wasn't awful or bad or anything. She just wasn't as good as she usually is.
Well, it wasn't awful because she was able to recover from it. That's what I'm saying. Like, I think if this had resulted in her leaving, then this was an awful week for her. But it's the way she was able to recover from it almost instantly, I think makes it not as bad. And that's another, again, similar to a lot of the season. It's like, because of how it ended up going, it makes it not as terrible. But this could have been a really catastrophic week because she starts off, makes a lot of mistakes here, promising to save like all of the women, and basically saying like, I'm not going to have a woman go this week. But she also wants to try to protect the leftovers and make sure that they stick together, who are a really strong alliance at this point. They've won 4 HOH. They've won 3 HOHs in a row. Actually 4 HOHs in a row, because Turner, Monty, Michael, and now Taylor. So they are pretty much an unstoppable force at this point. But she makes some really grave errors here. She doesn't
her saying like she wants the women to be safe. She's the real girl's girl.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. And which, after all of them saying like, "Oh, Taylor's not a girl's girl," literally wants to save all the women. Like, do you know what you're fucking talking about? Like, let's not make assumptions, please.
Literally.
So that definitely was not great for her, and she immediately walks back that promise when she nominates Indy, who's not her target. Indy is the pawn in this scenario. She wants Terrence out of the house, which Terrence is also a disgusting human being that
he was terrible.
Other people have not.
Honestly, like, Terrence is another one who's very colorist.
He is. He's disgusting. But when it comes to, so she wants to target she wants to target Terrence here. She thinks that Terrence could be a really good target. She thinks that Terrence needs to go. She doesn't trust him whatsoever. She knows that Terrence still holds a lot of vitriol towards her. So she wants him to go. The problem is, everybody else in the alliance wants Indy to go. They think that Indy is the bigger threat. They think Indy is a much bigger wild card, which makes sense. Indy is not someone that's doing a lot in this game at this point. She's somebody that, is such a wild card. They're afraid of her getting farther in the game. And so because of that, Taylor immediately is not in a great spot. Her target's not going to go. Even if he was on the block, he was not going to leave. So that's not great for her. Things get even more complicated when we get into the veto win here, in which Kyle ends up winning the veto. And things really start to go south here for Taylor because also, we also forgot to mention her and Joseph at this point are getting very close. They very much are each other's number ones. And Joseph was a really potentially terrible thing here. I'm glad that he didn't go through with it. I'm glad that Taylor didn't go through with it. But he offers to he basically says to Taylor that, if you don't have a pawn in mind, you can put me on the block and I'm going to be fine. Which would have been so bad if that happened, because I
know that wouldn't, I'm so glad it didn't fall through.
Yeah, it would have been so much worse for her if that happened. So I'm glad that she didn't go through with that, because that would have been really bad. But yes, that was a potential thing that was going to happen. But things get really complicated here when Kyle wins HOH. And we also forgot to mention Festy Bestie Twist is dead after this. Festy Bestie Twist ends, thankfully. So now everyone's playing for themselves, which we love because it's much more interesting that way. But I will say, looking back, the Festy Bestie Twist was not as terrible as we were thinking.
Yeah, it was. We definitely thought it'd be kind of shitty, but it wasn't totally terrible.
Well, I think it's more like that's in spite of the twist. I don't think it's because of the twist. I think it's like in spite of the twist. Like the twist is still bad, but because the outcome was not the worst, was actually really good. It's like, okay, this twist could have been a lot worse. So I think that's kind of how I feel about the Festy Bestie twist. It's not so much it's not so much that the twist itself wasn't what we thought it was going to be and that it was actually really good. It's that the outcome was good. It's not because the twist itself was good. So that ends. But Kyle wins veto here. And this is where things get really complicated, because basically, he is planning to take down, I believe he was going to take down Indy. That's basically what she wanted him to. Basically, she tells, no, he wasn't going to. What she wanted him to do was take down Indy, and he asked who, she was going to put up. And she says Alyssa. And this gets complicated because at this point, Kyle and Alyssa are very deeply into a showmance. This is the person that Kyle feels the best with. Taylor knows that Kyle is close with Alyssa in that way, and basically is telling him to use the veto, but sacrifice her going up. And this really starts to get everybody to question Taylor's loyalty, if she's actually willing to stick with the leftovers and things like that. Also, unfortunately, they start to regurgitate a lot of the hateful things they said about her earlier in the game because of that. So that's not great at all.
No.
But long story short, Kyle does not end up using the veto. Terrence does not end up leaving here. And we get probably one of the more uneventful boots of the season in Indy leaving here, who I don't have a ton to say about, to be honest with you. I will say, I think postseason, Indy's one of the only people that I've been able to kind of turn around on, where it's like I've seen her show genuine remorse. I've seen her show that she cares about Taylor. I've seen her show that she generally wants to be a good friend to her and things like that. She's very supportive towards her and Joseph's relationship and all that stuff. So, hats off to her for that. In the game as a player, I have jack shit to say about her. She was completely irrelevant the entire season. Didn't seem to know what was going on most of the time. She was not great. She was not great at all.
Yeah. Okay. Preseason, I thought she would just be really fun. Just like the fun, spunky one kind of thing. But obviously, during the season, she was just very irrelevant. And she did say some problematic things about Taylor. But I will say I am so glad she apologized, and it seemed like it was actually very genuine, because
she's the one where I feel like it was genuine,
because her and Taylor and Joseph are actually friends, so which is great. And she really was supportive towards Taylor and Joseph as well. So she's definitely someone that we can actually really support outside the house. But in the season, she was just kind of purpled too, not just obviously some of her problematic stuff obviously was shown, but like as a player, she was just super purple. She didn't really do much at all. So this boot was just really like just there for me because like okay, sure, I guess she can give first stir vibes.
Yeah, she kind of does give those first stir vibes though, where it's like someone who wasn't like terrible, but also like wasn't in that great of a position, didn't really know much of what was going on. Like she kind of gives that vibe off, honestly. Because like I don't really have a ton to say about Indy. What I think is so impressive though is that even though she ends up going, she leaves not mad at Taylor. She actually leaves wanting Taylor to do well. She actually leaves wanting Taylor to win, because Taylor has like this really good conversation with her. I don't remember what it was really about, but they were able to completely like turn things around. And it again, it's just it just shows the kind of person that Taylor is. The fact that even after the week that she had, the way she's completely able to turn it around, it's just so impressive to watch. And though yes, there are some people like Turner who don't trust Taylor at all after this week, which I don't necessarily blame him from a game perspective.
I mean, I get it.
The way everyone goes about it, it's just really gross. But Indy is definitely someone that I don't have a ton to say about in the game, but I do think postseason I have enjoyed her more, and I will definitely give her that. So yeah, I mean, that's really all to say about that. But now we get into, I think, what is probably one of the most memorable weeks of this season, and not necessarily in a good way, because we were basically told after this week that there was going to be some crazy twist that was happening, which I thought on paper sounded like a really cool idea. It was basically a split house twist where half of them are going to be in one house, the other half is going to be in. I know it's like something you forget about, but it did happen this season. But half of them are going to be in one house, half of them are going to be in another house. And I thought this sounded like a really cool idea. You can have, two games being played at once. You can have two different sides of the house pretty much. And, you don't get to talk to that other side of the house. I think that's a really cool idea overall. But I think execution wise, I think it's pretty common to say that it failed miserably. I don't think they handled this twist very well at all. There are a lot
it definitely was interesting to watch for sure. Like, because it was it was very different, very unique. But it's like how it turns out.
Yeah, I just think the execution of it was not great at all. There are honestly a lot of things about it that even ethically, I'm like, I don't think they should have done this. I don't think this was like safe. I don't think this was a good idea. So we'll talk about what actually happens. So basically, there are two HOHs this week. One of them ends up being Michael, which is fantastic because at this point, he's really with Taylor. And we knew once Michael won HOH that he was probably going to pick Taylor. And this is where we get into the stuff that I don't like as much. They win HOH. Immediately, they get to pick who is going to be living with them for the week. And here's the thing. If this is early on in the game when these people don't really know each other, fine. You can do, like a hand picking of sorts. But to me, something like this should be randomized. This should be just like names drawn. This should be like the veto pick, like names drawn out of a hat. It should be something where like everybody is, they don't get to choose who they're with. They get who they get, and they kind of just have to play based off of that. I think that is way more interesting to me than them getting to pick who they are working with. But it also makes for it would have made for a much more exciting twist because, like, let's say Michael doesn't get to pick Taylor and things like that. And she has to go with the Terrence side of the house, but then the Terrence side of the house is made up of people like that she's working with and things like that. I just think the whole week could have played out much differently. And because that ended up being just kind of a snooze fest of a week overall, because you kind of knew what was going to happen on both sides.
Yeah, I agree with that. But
what were you gonna say?
But yeah, it was definitely spicy to watch, but it was also like hard to watch at times.
Yeah, and we'll talk about why it was so hard to watch. But so Michael wins the first HOH. Unfortunately, though, Terrence wins the other HOH, which was not great because I
No.
think all of us were expecting that Terrence was going to be the next person to go, that Terrence was probably going to leave right after Indy because nobody really seemed to be that great with him. Unfortunately, this puts Terrence in a really good position where he does actually really take control here and things like that. But where it gets really dicey for me and where what I really don't like. So we already have that problem of like them not, getting to handpick it and things like that, and them not getting to, and it not being randomized. But then we find out how it's actually going to work in that half of them are going to get to live inside the house. The other half have to live outside of the house.
Yep.
Which, mind you, it's summer, over 90 degrees. Not any sort of, and they don't take any sort of safety precautions here. There were multiple.
They really don't.
Yeah. From what I remember, they were like complaining about bugs and things like that. They were, their sleeping conditions were horrifically bad. They didn't have any sort of beds for them or anything. They had very little. They had like a mini fridge from what I remember. And that was like all the food that they had. The whole thing was just so badly constructed. I think
it feels like they didn't really like think everything through.
Well, I don't understand why they didn't just do like half of them are upstairs, half of them are downstairs. Like there's literally a staircase. Just utilize that. Like I don't understand why they didn't do that. And that
would have been way better.
Yeah, that makes so much more sense, But yeah, so we get these two games going on. I'm going to talk about the least interesting one first. When Michael won HOH, it was obvious what was going to happen. Like there was no scenario whatsoever in which what happened did not happen, where basically he decides to pick Michael, Monty, Brittany, who is his closest ally at this point, and Jasmine. And we knew Jasmine was going to go at this point.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't a shock to anybody. Nobody really felt all that great with her. She was in this position where people just kind of saw her as somebody that was kind of like easy pickings at this point. And that is what ends up happening. Jasmine does end up going this week, which we'll talk about Jasmine in a little bit. The thing I do want to touch upon here is we do get some really good moments between Monty and Taylor this week where he apologizes for things he said about her in week one. Unfortunately, he kind of does everything he can to walk that back later on. But at this point, I was like, okay, Monty actually is like, recognizing what he did wrong. He's taking accountability. Yeah. This is really good. It's really
that was good.
Yeah, I thought this was a really good moment for him overall. Also, Taylor re-solidifies, that she wants to work with Brittany and Michael, that they need to be a three, that they really need each other. I think this was a really good week for her because of the fact that she's able to re-solidify things with them. Michael, wants to protect Taylor this week. He wants to make sure that Brittany and Taylor have all the power. And I think that was really good of Taylor and things like that she was able to put herself in such a strong position. So, not a ton going on outside of that, though. It's a very straightforward week. Jasmine does end up leaving.
This one house was definitely like just very straightforward.
Yeah.
Like just not as interesting just because it's like not as spicy.
Yeah. Even Monty going up was like not surprising. Like we knew Monty wasn't going to go. But
because the others are in the Lions.
Yeah, Jasmine is, well, we'll talk about the leftovers in a little bit because that doesn't last that much longer, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Jasmine is somebody that is interesting to talk about because I think as a player, she's kind of terrible. I think she's another one that just didn't really know a lot of what was going on in the house. I think that she, again, similar to a lot of people this season, was just really fucking mean to Taylor, really fucking rude to her, didn't really give her any sort of chance whatsoever. She does make up for that this week. They have some really good conversations where, Taylor kind of talks to her about, how she is as a person. And I think, Jasmine leaves with a much more positive opinion about Taylor because of that. And it's mainly due to just how well Taylor did in showing that she's not the person that people are saying she is and things like that. And also just really showing how generous and kind of a person she is. And I think Jasmine really sees that. That being said, in terms of like entertainment, I do think she is a very entertaining character. I think that she is somebody I kind of do want to see play again at some point, because I think if she was on a different cast that isn't nearly as hateful and, you know, racist as this one was, I think that she would fare a lot better. And I think that we could actually see that, like, she is like a very fun player. Like her DRs, like her confessionals this season are everything when she's talking about, you know, I mean, who can forget what she's, you know, blindside butter beans and things like that. Everybody was quoting that for a while.
It was so funny.
You know, she's the kind of character that it either works for you or doesn't work for you. And I do think by the end, Jasmine did kind of win me over with her confessionals overall. But as a player, I thought that she was honestly not that great. She has done a lot of work similar to Indie postseason to show that she is sorry, and that's great. And I hope that, you know, she generally understands what she said about Taylor. She generally understands, you know, what happened. I think also the fact that on her HOH reign, Taylor said that she was not going to put up another Black woman. You know, Jasmine really did appreciate that, and it meant a lot to her and things like that. And I think that really did help Taylor a lot. But again, it's kind of just like what could have been. Like if Jasmine had come into this season a lot more open-minded and she didn't just blindly believe what everyone said about Taylor, she could have done a lot better. But because she didn't, she ends up going this week. So not really much else to say about her.
Yeah, she's someone who obviously I was very iffy with at the beginning, because obviously just the stuff with like about Taylor and stuff like that. But she definitely won me over as well, because I'm just very appreciative she had that conversation with Taylor, like before she left, that kind of thing. And like she really has like proven that she's another one who actually wants to be Taylor's friend.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just so very happy about that. Like she's actually, and then overall, like as a player, obviously, yeah, she's not that good of a player, but I do think she definitely needed a better cast. Because I could see her doing a little bit better. If there was more likable people.
Yeah.
And she is really funny. Like her, oh my god, her confessionals, like all of her country sayings, they just kill me.
Yeah. Especially that they're so over the top. Like
I know. She just gives like very silly vibes.
She does. So, and oh my god, everything with also, can we talk about just everything with like the muffin with like Turner and their like sort of whole rivalry? It's great.
It's amazing. Like I don't even think they hate each other.
No, I don't think they do either.
No, they were just having a lot of fun. Because they're both like, they both just give like troll, silly, but fun vibes.
I think if I remember, she just said, like, as she was leaving the house, she just said, just make sure Turner doesn't win. That's all she said. So,
oh, that was funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, like, Jasmine's actually pretty iconic, besides like obviously things that she said in the preseason, or I mean, sorry, early season, but I'm glad she apologized and seemed like she's actually very genuine and real about it, and she does actually seem like a very kind person.
One can hope.
Hopefully.
Sure. With that said, we got to talk about the more, I think, the much more uncomfortable part of this week, everything going on within Dire Fest, which you know, we'll talk about what leads to, you know, unfortunately Joseph leaving. We'll talk about what happens there in a little bit, but I just think that everything about Dire Fest, the way it was handled, everything from the way they ended up doing the competition, the way that they didn't even show the feeds for a bit. If I remember, like they didn't even show the feeds until like after the veto ceremony and things like that. So we had no idea what was actually going to happen. And it was like literally right before the eviction was happening. And again, just the way it seemed they cared so little about Dire Fest. They cared so little about constructing it. It just felt so half-assed. And it was like, again, just not a safe environment, I think, for the players. They're out in the open, outside in the summer. Just really not great at all. I think just not very safe conditions or anything like that. I think they really just needed to rethink a lot of that. That's already a problem. But the bigger issue with Dire Fest, of course, is what ends up taking place. Because once Terrence wins HOH, I actually do think he had an opportunity here to kind of shake things up. He really did, because at this point, it was pretty obvious who was running the game. And unfortunately, it was Kyle and Turner. They were very much in like a dominant position to where these are two people that had each other's backs. They have been working closely together. They are probably going to take each other to the end at this point. And Terrence had an opportunity, I think, to really kind of work on Joseph, somebody that doesn't really think very highly of him, and actually try to, work something out and say like, listen, I really want to work here with you. I don't want you to go this week. And even if it would have just bought him another week, I think Terrence did have an opportunity here to really shake things up. But unfortunately, he again just can't get rid of the hatred he has, not just towards Taylor, but also towards Joseph. He shows this week he doesn't seem to have any care towards Joseph whatsoever, completely counts him out. And Joseph is really fighting for his life here. He's really doing everything he can to try to stay. But Joseph,
this made me so sad to watch.
Yeah. Joseph and Turner are nominated for the week, which, wouldn't have been the worst outcome. Like, okay, maybe Turner's going to go, and that's maybe what's going to happen here. But things really take a turn when Terrence wins the veto. And again, he really has an opportunity to try to turn things around here. He really has an opportunity if he saved, I think if he had saved Turner here, I think this really could have, or if he had saved Joseph here, this really would have been a very interesting week. And it could have been something that I think put him in a really interesting position moving forward. But unfortunately, he chooses not to do that, mainly because he also creates this 4 with him, Kyle, Turner, and Alyssa, which does not benefit him in the slightest. He's very going to get picked off, and I think he should have recognized that. But he doesn't. He wants to work with these 4. They want to like ride it out to the end at this point. Unfortunately, he does put Kyle up, and Joseph really tries to do a lot of work here, showing that Kyle is this mastermind, showing that Kyle is somebody that he needs to be fearful of, that Kyle does not have his best interest, that, he's keeping a showmance in the house, and that is never going to be a good sign. That's always going to lead to, that's never going to lead to anything positive for anybody that's not the showmance, which is true. When you're keeping a showmance in the house, it benefits the showmance. It doesn't really benefit anyone else unless they're like really close to them, which I don't think Terrence really was that close to Kyle and Alyssa. He liked Alyssa, which again, similar to Daniel's obsession with Paloma, was really fucking weird.
That was so weird.
Yeah. But,
man is also married.
Yeah, it was just, not a fan of that. But, yeah, basically he ends up putting up Kyle, and like I said, Joseph really tries to do a lot of good work here. But just the way everyone treats Joseph this week, it has to be said, is just absolutely abhorrent to watch. They completely count him out. They start making up all these lies about him of things that he didn't do, things that he didn't say, and they try to paint him in the most villainous light possible. There's this horrible moment with Alyssa where he's trying to defend himself, and Alyssa literally like sticks her fingers in his face and is telling him that she needs to be the one speaking, victimizes herself. It's just, everything about Dire Fest is so hard to watch here.
Well, I hated that so much.
And Joseph has said postseason that he can't watch this part of the season, and I don't really blame him. He didn't want to relive anything that happened at Dire Fest because it was such a rough time for him.
It was bad.
And unfortunately, it does lead to Joseph going here. And I'll get to my thoughts on Joseph in a little bit. But what do you want to say about Joseph Abden? 24, we must say. Not 23, 24. Because once he turned 24, turn the whole season around.
Joseph was just like a very real, very genuine, kind person. And like he really just got screwed there. Like he worked really hard to stay, but they were just blinded by other people and other things. So yeah, I feel so bad for him during Dire Fest because that was just rough to watch. Like,
It really was.
It was just very sad and heartbreaking to watch for him. And like him being voted out, him being evicted then, like, that just made me so sad. I just wanted to hug him so much.
Yeah, I mean, you especially feel for him when he's leaving. He doesn't even get to hug like the other house guests. He doesn't get to say goodbye to Taylor. It's a really just emotional moment all around. But I will say right now, I think if there is anyone this season that needed a different cast, it's Joseph.
Oh
I
yeah,
think Joseph, one,
he's definitely another person who needed a different cast.
the fact that he was an alternate this season is crazy to me because I don't think he played like an alternate at all at the start. I will say I think he did. Once his birthday happened, he completely and listen, it's a meme. People like to say that Joseph woke up and started playing the game, but it really is true. Like once that the leftovers were formed, he just really turned things around, and I think he's in a really good spot. I think just what ended up happening was he was working with people that just wanted to count him out. They didn't even want to give him the benefit of the doubt. They didn't even want to try to, work with him or anything like that. And it was just really unfortunate to watch. You could see him fighting hard for his life here, and it just ended up backfiring for him completely. I just really feel for Joseph here, and everything that he went through with Dire Fest was just really gross to watch. But I think all around Joseph is an incredible person. He had played a really good social game. I think he was in a really good positioning within the leftovers and things like that. There were people, someone like a Monty, he was playing to ride out with up until the end. I'm pretty sure, I think Monty even said after Joseph left, like, that was my final two. That was the person he was going to stick with until the bitter end. And I think that those two definitely had each other. I think that, him and Taylor, people like to debate whether or not their partnership like benefit each other. I don't think it did. I'll say that right now. I do think that Joseph did hurt Taylor's game because they were very much seen as like that duo of sorts. But it's very hypocritical because I think Alyssa and Kyle were the much more powerful duo, and the fact that they didn't take a shot, that Terrence didn't try to take a shot at either of them,
he should have.
It's just ridiculous to me. So yeah, Joseph leaving, it just really sucks. I think that he really could have gone farther this season. I think that he needed a different cast. I think this twist just did not go in his favor whatsoever, but he also was just playing with people that just wanted to treat him the worst way they possibly could. And yeah, that's what ended up happening. So yeah, Joseph ends up going here. It's really sad.
Yeah, Joseph is such a nice, he's just such a nice person, and he's just such a good guy. So he just truly deserved better.
Yeah, he really did. But yeah, Joseph ends up going. Really sucks. But I will say, seeing everybody reunite at Dire Fest and everything that happened, definitely one of the highlights of that week for me. Just seeing everybody come back together. But again, also you feel so bad for Taylor. Like, she's looking for Joseph. She's wondering, if he's still there, and the fact that he's not, you can just see how much that really hurts her and things like that. And it's definitely a very difficult moment to watch. But I will say, I want to see them try this twist out again at some point, because I do think it does have a lot of potential. I saw a YouTube video where someone kind of talked about like how they could have redone it, and I think it could really work in a future season. I think just the way that they handled it, similar to a lot of things in Big Brother, was just not well thought out at all. And I think it just really ended up, hurting the season. So, yeah. And that leads us into what might be the hardest week to talk about besides week one. There is a lot going on in this next week of the show. And I will say right now, the way it's portrayed, I'm not a fan of. I'll say that right off the bat. There's a lot of things that happened this season in terms of the episode, in terms of the grander scale, the episodes, a lot of them I'm not a fan of the way they depict it. And that's nothing new for BBUS, but I think this particular situation, they need to portray so much differently the way that they did. And the fact that they didn't is just really, really bad. But we'll just get into it. Basically, this week, everyone obviously is reunited after Dire Fest. Turner wins the HOH and immediately did not seem like it was off to a great start, because he now has this 4 with Alyssa. Turner and Alyssa, Terrence, and Kyle, and it seems like he's not going to turn on that. He also is very conflicted about the leftovers, whether that's still a thing, whether he wants them to continue working together. And he makes a choice pretty much at the beginning of this week that the leftovers is basically dead, which sucked because they were really killing it.
I know, it made me sad.
Really strong alliance, and also, you know, really benefited Taylor, which is what's most important at the end of the day. But he decides to nominate Brittany and Taylor, which right off the bat did not make any sense. I will say that.
No, not at all.
The right decision for his game. I don't think it made sense for him to target those two. I think that, you know, he absolutely needed to take a bigger shot. The problem I have with Turner this week is that he just can't seem to make up his own mind. And this is really where we get to the bigger issue with Turner's game, which we'll talk about when we get to Turner. Yeah. But I just don't think Turner, I think he's good socially. I think he has potential as a player, but strategically, he is not there. He is not there at all. His entire game is basically being coaxed into making decisions that other people want to make. And we really get to see that play out this week. Kyle, at the beginning of this week, is completely controlling his HOH. He's in complete control. He's telling me exactly what to do. He's telling me exactly who he needs to target. He wants Monty gone at this point. He thinks Monty is the biggest threat. And so he wants to target Monty this time around. And so Turner is like completely just under his spell. But things take a turn once Michael wins veto. And this is really where we get to some very hard-hitting conversations. Basically, Michael wins veto, and we stem back to a scene that happened earlier in the season where during Michael's HOH reign, Kyle was having this conversation with him and basically trying to peddle this narrative of the idea that all of the people of color within the house are working together and they're forming a cookout 2.0 of sorts. And he wants to try to use this as a way where it's like, well, we got to be worried about these people. They're all going to stick together. They all have the same goal in mind. And look, a lot of people have said this. Obviously, if he thought this, that's fine. Like, I'm sure this is something that people thought about going into the season, that there could be another cookout of sorts. But the fact that he acted on it and chose to bring it up to Michael, who was in HOH, that's really what just rubs me the wrong way here, because it comes across as everything he did in the game wasn't because of strategy, wasn't because of the game. It was because of this really racist narrative that he had concocted in his head, that just because the majority of the house, you know, is mostly POCs, that they are working together because of that. And that alone was a really big problem. The fact that Kyle would say that is just really disgusting to me. Because to be honest with you, prior to him saying that, I was kind of liking Kyle. I was like, okay, he's not as bad as I thought he was going to be. I think that he has potential as a player. He seems to generally really care about Taylor. He seems to really want her to succeed. And
I was thinking that too.
And then him saying that just portrayed him in a completely different light. And I think really just exposed it really just exposed a lot of his hateful rhetoric that he's felt throughout his entire life, and really just that coming to fruition here.
Yeah, it was like just really bad, and it was so like uncomfortable to watch for sure. Like, because like we actually thought he was like going to be turn out to be this nice person and like very genuine towards Taylor and everything. But like, yeah, him saying that really like rubbed us all the wrong way. And it was just like uncalled for. It was cruel. It was just terrible. It was not good at all.
Yeah. So basically, this is where we get to probably the hardest part of the entire season, is that Michael decides that now that he has one veto, he's going to take this opportunity to target Kyle. And he has this conversation with Taylor and Monty. He wants them to know what's going on. And Brittany and him basically confess to everything. And here is my problem with this, is that It would be different if he was targeting Kyle for, game reasons and things like that. And I think the reason these targeting Kyle are good. Like there's definitely something you don't want that in the house. You want that to go away. But bears repeating, everybody said this. I'm going to say it again. The fact that Michael knew what Kyle was doing, that he had this conversation with him, held on to this information, and then didn't say a single thing about it until he was now in power and had the decision to, use the veto to make sure that Kyle went home, really just makes me feel icky. I'm not going to lie. It's a very icky situation the way that played out. Because regardless of if it was his intention or not, which I don't think it was. I don't think he intentionally was doing this as a way to withhold game information to help him and Brittany and work with Kyle. It was that he continued to work with Kyle after this week. He made deals with Kyle between himself and Brittany and things like that. And then he didn't mention anything about it to Taylor, who is supposed to be his closest ally besides Brittany, until it was beneficial for him to do so. And so it very much does feel like he used racism as a strategy. He used Kyle saying this as a strategy. And it's really sickening to think about. And that's why I have a really hard time, it's really hard to talk about Michael as a player without bringing this up, because I think there are a lot of positives about him as a player, but it's the fact that he held on to this information for so long and things like that. Yeah. It just really comes across as performative activism. It comes across as him doing this because it's well, look at what Kyle did. We got to target him now because of it. And the thing is, this is so far beyond the game. This is all stuff he said that, yeah, it's horrible. It's something that you should expose him for. But it's the fact that he didn't do it immediately, and he chose to do it at a time when he needed Kyle to go. Mm-hmm. It just really upsets me that he decided to do that. So
I know, yeah, it was just really bad timing.
Yeah, it's not even that it's bad timing. It's the fact that he would choose to not do it until now. I don't know why he didn't just initially tell people what was happening. Because I think this is something that is very important to talk about. I think this is something that's very important to call out. What Kyle was saying was not something along the lines of oh, there could be an alliance. Is that no, there is an alliance. There is something that's going on. And he was using it as a reason to target the people of color in the house. And I think it's just really gross that he would do something like that. And I think Monty should have recognized that there are just some things that are beyond the game. And this is very much one of them. And so I just have a very hard time, thinking about the situation and not saying that both Kyle and Michael were in the wrong for how they handled this. I don't think they did a good job. I don't think they did a good job with this at all. I think even though it's great that Michael targeted Kyle and made a really big move and things like that, and I think it's great that he exposed Kyle for what he said and said it to Monty and Taylor, he should have done it initially. He shouldn't have needed a reason to bring this up. This was not something Kyle said something that was important to his game and he needed to hold on to it. This is something you expose immediately. And the fact that he didn't, I have a really big problem with.
Yeah, he should have just done it initially, not just, yeah, I don't hate Michael or anything. It's just,
no.
That was just really not the best at all. It was just if you call yourself an activist, do the right thing. Don't do it at the wrong time.
Yeah, stand up for what's right. Don't just do things because don't just do it when it benefits you. Do it when it needs to happen. And that's really what it comes down to with Michael. It's
yes.
When there is something like that that's revealed, you need to expose that immediately, because basically he actively because a lot of Kyle's decisions in the game were based around this theory he had, this incredibly problematic and racist theory that he had, and that needed to be exposed immediately. And so I just have a really hard time with that. But Kyle is targeted, and Kyle does end up leaving this week, which was great. I was glad that Kyle left because I absolutely hated Kyle in the game at this point. I
same.
hated the fact that he would say all these terrible things. But the other thing I have a really big problem with is the way the show decides to depict it. The show does not depict it in the sense where they try to show what Kyle said was wrong. They try to show, how Kyle's words impacted the rest of the house. They frame it solely around Kyle and him basically being this, this apologist of sorts, and him, seeing how much this is affecting him. This moment with Alyssa, where she basically breaks up with him. This moment with this moment with Taylor, where Taylor tells Kyle that he's a good person and that he just messed up and he needs to work on himself and things like that. It just comes across as the show is trying to create this narrative that everybody should be forgiven for things that they say, that everybody should be, we should hold somebody accountable, but then we also shouldn't target them for that. I don't know. I really had a hard time the show was depicting Kyle. If I'm being honest, the episode where he leaves is probably my least favorite episode this entire season, just because they frame it solely around Kyle's eyes, when I feel like they very much could have shown how this was affecting Taylor, how this was affecting Monty, and they do, but it's like a quick scene of that. Almost the entire thing is centered around Kyle, and I don't understand why they would choose to frame it around him when it's such a huge issue like racism. Why focus it around the white person who was contributing to it? It just
it's not even about him.
Well, it is about him. It is about him, but
but I don't want to. It can't be focused on just him because he's the one who started this.
Yeah, it's about him, but it should be focused around how his words impacted others, how what he did impacted the people in the house that he says were working together. How did it affect Monty? How did it affect Taylor? That to me is much more impactful than seeing how the racist white guy that started this, how he is being affected. I honestly, yes, that's something that we needed to see. I think Alyssa breaking up with him, yes, we need to see stuff like that. But also know how it affects Taylor, how it affects Monty. So I just feel like it really just shows how far behind the times Big Brother is that they don't even want to try to frame this narrative in that way, because I feel like that's such an easy thing to do. And so many people were talking about, I remember before this, it's I really hope they depict this correctly. I really hope they show this right. And I remember people were saying things like, no, they didn't explain this well at all. They really didn't do a good job of showing what actually happened and things like that. They're trying to frame Kyle in a way that's not true. Because the other thing that they don't show in the episode is that upon doing this, Kyle just wanted to quit. He basically was saying oh, I need to leave this house. Everyone's thinking of me this way. He was just ready to leave because he didn't want to face the consequences. He didn't just want to admit that he was this way, and immediately decided to just react and try to paint himself as a victim. And the show doesn't depict that either. So yeah, I just have a very hard time with how they portrayed Kyle in this episode. I don't think that it was the right way to go about it at all. I think that, again, they very much were trying to portray him as this apologist of sorts, and I just really just rubbed me the wrong way, the way they went about it.
It just made me sick to my stomach and rub me the wrong way, and it was just they handled it so
poorly.
Not great at all. It was very poor and just not good.
Yeah, so that easily, if I have to say, probably what's the worst thing they depict this season, this is yet another instance where it's this is why we needed the feeds, because if you had just watched that episode, you would think that Michael did this out of nowhere. You would think that Michael, they almost tried to depict Michael as the enemy here. There's something wrong with Michael exposing Kyle. The issue is not that Michael exposed Kyle. The issue is that Michael exposed Kyle when it was beneficial to him. He should have exposed Kyle immediately. Something like that, you do it even when it you know that it could affect your game because it's more important than the game. And that's something that he should have done. So, yeah. I think we've said all we needed to about this. Kyle, as a player, I do think had a lot of potential. I think early on in the game, I think he had some really great moments earlier on in the game, especially like forming the left. Like he definitely was very instrumental in the formation of the leftovers. He had a day. I think that he had some really good strategic moments. I think that he was somebody that a lot of people trusted. He was in a lot of people's good graces. He was in a really good spot in the first half of the game. But then after developing this narrative in his head that really just didn't make any fucking sense whatsoever, like if he had just thought, and that's the other thing, like if he had just thought for a second, like, wait, all these people have been punching down on Taylor. All of these people have been saying all these terrible things about Taylor. Why for a second would they be working together? But also just immediately, just automatically assuming that the people of color are working together. And if he would have just taken some time in his head to kind of just like work through that for a second and recognize that that doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't sit right with me at all.
No, what I was going to say, if he had just taken some time to do that, I think he could have actually been a really good player this season. I think he actually could have gone, honestly, really far. But
he could have,
he really just completely he really just completely squandered any chances he had of doing well because similar to a lot of people this season, he could not let go of this narrative. It clouded his entire game, and you could just see how much that affected him, and he completely did it to himself by the end. So I have very little sympathy for Kyle as a player. I have very little sympathy for anything he did. Now, I will say Taylor has said postseason that her and Kyle are still friends, that she considers Kyle a good friend of hers, which is great. And she said that like she doesn't think he's a bad person and she hopes that he like works things out. But if I'm being honest with you, I haven't seen that from Kyle. I've seen Kyle as somebody who said that he was going to work on himself and then just immediately went back to doing like fucking TikToks every day. So yeah, and just
being like his normal like gym and just his and video games.
Yeah, I don't see it from Kyle at all. I think that he, like I said, had potential as a player, but once he
started, all that stuff is fine in IRL. Just work on yourself, dude.
Yeah, like he needed to recognize that there's a bigger picture, and it's mainly just the way that he goes out talking about how, oh, I'm gonna make sure that like I really look into this about myself, and things like that. It's one thing to say it, but you need to actually like show it, show that you have done that work, show that you have done what you can to work to fend off all of those hateful notions you have about people. Show that you have done that. And he did not do that. And I think that, to me, it just comes across as performative. So yeah, I just really can't stand Kyle at all. I wanted to like him in the game, and I did like him for a little bit, but once he said what he said, I was pretty much done with him. And despite how the show wants to depict it, I don't think he is necessarily. I do think that he is potentially maybe sorry for what he did, but I do think Kyle is somebody who would have rather just not let that be revealed at all than actually try to work on himself and figure out why he would even come to that conclusion.
Yeah, like I've never really been like a fan of him at all, like, but I mean he definitely had potential because he was a big part of the leftovers, but he truly screwed that up. And that's why that alliance sunk, like him and Turner. But they were going strong for a while. But yeah, overall, like Kyle's just very yikes.
Yeah.
Like,
and the way they portrayed it was also yikes. It was very tone deaf. It was not the right way to go about it. I do think that Taylor's veto speech was like very empowering, what she said. But that's how they need to portray the entire situation. Like show it through her eyes, show how it's affecting her. Like I think that to me is way more impactful than showing how some white dude who probably is not even going to think about this because he's going to continue to be his normal ignorant self is affected by this or not affected by this. He's just affected that he was called out. That's why he's upset. So yeah, that's all I will say.
Yeah, they definitely need to show more of how Taylor and Monty were affected.
Yeah, like the most we get of Monty is he told him that like he was upset that like he would have accepted him doing anything, like even if he didn't want to, if he wanted to work with everyone except him, but it was the fact that he like fed into this narrative that's what really just like upset him and things like that. But they needed to do more with that. So yeah. I think we've said all we needed to about Kyle. Again, a lot of potential, but just really contributed to a lot of the problematic stuff that was going on.
Oh yeah, like he's definitely like very problematic, and he's just very performative.
Yeah,
and he is not an activist.
Well, I don't think he ever said he was. I don't think he ever
tried. I know, but like him saying that just proves he's like not like. Hopefully, he works on himself. Hopefully, he does research and works on himself and gets better. But like, yikes, sir.
Yeah. So I think we've said all we need to about Kyle. Like I said, it's probably, aside from the first week, the hardest part of the season to really talk about, just because of just all the sadness regarding that situation and the way it affects so many people, within the house, particularly, like I said, Monty and Taylor, how it affects them and things like that. And I'm glad that Kyle was like called out for what he did. It's just
me too.
That happened. I wish it happened a lot sooner because I think things would have gone differently.
Yeah.
I think Dyer probably goes a lot differently.
It definitely would have been better if he was called out sooner because, like, then he probably would have left in Dyer Fest too.
Yeah, I think he definitely would.
Or even before.
Yeah. But we now get to the next week. We have a double eviction coming up, which is, I think, besides week 3 and the finale, easily the most exciting week of the entire season. Also, one of the best double evictions we've had in years. Easily
so good.
Very exciting to talk about. The first half of it, though, not that exciting. Very predictable how it turns out. Basically, surprise, surprise, Michael ends up winning HOH again, which is crazy. He just is constantly winning all these HOHs and vetoes. Almost beats Janelle's record, if I remember correctly. He almost beats her record. Which her record has been broken if you're counting BB Can, because I think Ty now has the most comp wins. But in terms of BBUS, it's still Janelle reigning supreme in terms of like comp wins. But yeah, he wins HOH and he targets Alyssa and Terrence. And basically his target is pretty much either of them. He doesn't really care who goes at this point. Both of them are kind of viewed on the same wavelength, and honestly, as they should be, because they're both very much just like not really someone that anyone really cares about within the house and things like that. But he also does probably something he shouldn't have done and also wins the veto, even though I don't think Michael probably should have won the veto here. I think he very well could have not done that. But what's very important at this point is what the show does not show you. What the show does not show you is at this point in the game, Taylor is having extensive conversations with people about Michael in the game and how Michael is someone that is a really big threat in the game. Michael is offered a gentleman's agreement with Monty and Turner. And at first, they are thinking of potentially sticking to this. They are thinking of, this is something that's going to benefit them, and they want to target the girls of Brittany, Alyssa, and Taylor. They think they are the biggest threat within the house. They think the three of them, want to target the guys and things like that. But Taylor really goes to work here and tries to prove that Michael is the biggest threat and that Michael doesn't have their best interests. And I think in terms of strategy, this is her best week. I think
it's so good
this week. I think that what ends up happening in the double eviction honestly doesn't happen without her. And I think it really sucks that once again, the show just doesn't really portray that. The show kind of portrays this as this agreement happened and then they just didn't agree to it. Like, we don't really get to see why they didn't. We don't really understand why they didn't. But knowing the context, it makes a lot more sense. Taylor was somebody that they were thinking of targeting here. But again, because she really goes to work and talks about how big of a threat Michael is, I think she just really puts herself in an amazing position after this. So Yeah, I mean, I think this is probably her best week in terms of strategy. But yeah, Michael wins veto, and it's pretty straightforward at that point. At this point of the game,
I mean, yeah, like Michael's definitely someone who like probably would have won in the end, like especially with all of his comp wins. He's just like a beast
yeah,
as a
we'll talk
player.
about him. We'll talk about him in a little bit, but we do have to talk about first half of the episode ends with Terrence leaving. Not surprising. Terrence he tries to put in some work, but it does not work whatsoever. He honestly is the kind of player that just completely fucked himself over the entire game. He was working with people that did not have his best interests whatsoever. They didn't seem to care about him whatsoever. He completely just discounts people that do want to work with him. He was one of the people that was most actively contributing to just being showing a lot of hatred and rudeness towards Taylor and things like that. He's just a flop. Like, he's the definition of a flop. He thought he was in this great position, but to be honest, I don't think that he was ever in a beneficial spot. I don't think he was ever in a place where he wasn't viewed as like an easy pawn, an easy nominee. He was always viewed that way, and I don't think he did anything to really put himself in a better position. I think, the fact that he gets out of the house and the first thing he says is, "I can't wait to meet Daniel and Nicole." It just really shows just how irrelevant he ended up being in the general.
That's so stupid to say.
Yeah, like the first thing he says is like, "Oh, Daniel and Nicole were my closest allies." It's like, cool, Daniel and Nicole left forever ago. But yeah, I really can't stand Terrence. I think he's a really shitty person. I think he said a lot of terrible things about Taylor. Also, he was one of the people that was like really trying to push this narrative of just hateful stereotypes of like Black women and things like that. It just really gross all around. I couldn't stand him. He was so misogynistic, not just towards Taylor, but towards basically all the women in the house.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I can't. I fucking hate Terrence. Like, I don't have much else to say.
Yeah, I don't like him either. Like, he's another very disappointing individual. Like, for being a POC himself, he was also colorist. He was misogynistic. He was just terrible. Like, you weren't even close to Daniel and Nicole, sir. And also, like, you're married.
He was close to Daniel and Nicole.
I mean, yeah, but not like that.
No, he was.
Ish.
No, the issue is not that. No, the issue is not that he was not close to Daniel and Nicole. The issue is that they left pre-jury.
Well, yeah, that too. But like, he also is just like, for being a POC, he gives like, he gives just like one of those like Republican vibes because, like, he's just all around being an awful person, and he should be sticking up for women. He should be sticking up for like anyone. Like he should have been on Taylor's side.
Yeah, he very much should have.
But like,
I if I remember, for a while, like, people thought he was, and then he just like fed into the narrative.
Yeah, like he's
like the definition of a follower.
Yeah, like him and Amira are both definitions of followers. And like,
I wouldn't say Amira was a follower. Amira was one of the most active.
I mean, she was. Oh no, she was a follower. She just
no. What I'm saying is, Amira wasn't someone who just like followed the crowd. She was one of the people who was most actively vocal towards negativity towards Taylor.
I mean, yeah, but she's also a follower too. But like, this guy is just so frustrating, and it was just, I did not like watching him at all. He just made me really sick to my stomach. And just, he hasn't even apologized. He hasn't owned up to anything.
I think if I remember correctly, Taylor said like her mom wanted to like yell at him.
I mean, that'd be iconic.
Yeah.
I want to see that. But yeah, talk some sense into him, because his wife is probably like pissed off and probably thought his behavior was ugly and disgusting.
Because it was.
Mm-hmm.
I think his only good moment all season was during the Kyle conversation, the way that he also was like very fervently against what Kyle was doing.
Yeah.
And talked about how offended he was as a black man. I thought that was a good moment for him, and it showed that.
Yeah, it was.
But the problem is, like, he completely he shows such hypocrisy with that, because the way he treats Taylor is just as bad. And he
is very hypocritical.
So little, like, he shows so little like disregard for her, but then he questions like, why doesn't she want to work with me? Like, I don't know, why wouldn't she want to work with you? Someone you were constantly hating on all season, someone you never tried to show any sort of care towards, someone you always count out, you never include her in anything. I don't know, Terrence, why wouldn't she want to work with you? Like,
he's very condescending.
He's like, really fucking stupid too.
Like, I'm sure his wife is just thought he was terrible to Taylor and everyone. Like, yeah. I'm sure she was she's probably not even rooting for him at some points.
I don't know that, but yeah.
But like, for real though. But just like, I don't think she was for his behavior at all. Yeah. Like, I mean, it'd be nice if he changed in research, and it'd be nice if he apologized to Taylor, but make it genuine, please. And I don't like this guy at all.
Yeah. So I think we saw when you two about Terrence.
Oh yeah, I'll end it there. That it was just him leaving was just very refreshing.
It was, but it also was like very predictable, because we kind of knew he was going to.
It was though.
What's more exciting is the second half of that double eviction, where things take a turn almost immediately. We see Turner wins the HOH here, and his initial plan, from what I understand, and this is again why I don't think Turner is that great of a player, his initial plan is to nominate Alyssa and Brittany. He wants the two of them out, with Brittany being the target. He thinks that Brittany needs to go. From what I understand, I think he was going to... I think his plan was to renom Monty, and he wanted Brittany to go at that point. But things turn around when Monty wins the veto here. And we get a great moment for Monty where he goes to Alyssa and he's like, "You're coming down." And I'm like, "Monty, it's not that serious, but I'm kind of here for it."
Oh yeah, that was so funny.
She just has this look on her face like, okay, I don't know why you're giving me like an Oscar speech here, but like Monty's acting like he's giving like his Oscar clip and like like a best actor or something.
It was so funny.
It was great to see. But yeah, he wins veto and pretty much pitches to Turner that Michael has to go here. Michael has to go this week. You have to put a Michael. We can't keep letting him slide by. And I mean, at that point, they pretty much had to target him here, and that's exactly what happens. Michael is backdoored. And with that, Michael ends a very impressive run in the game. I will say right off the bat, comp-wise, it is incredible how this guy did. I think it is absolutely insane. So good. This is the kind of point where you do have to highlight his comp wins, because usually I don't like to fixate that on that much, but you do kind of have to highlight that here, because he won almost every single of the season, which is crazy. The only vetoes he didn't win was week 6 and the Dire Fest. That was the only time he didn't win veto. Every other time he won veto or was and then when he didn't win veto, he was HOH. So that's pretty crazy. But then also having such a strong social game, I think he was someone that people just really felt great with. I think throughout the entire season, people always said like, "Oh, I want to work with," unless they were Daniel. They were like, "I want to work with Michael. I want to work with Michael. I feel good with Michael." And it's mainly just due to how approachable the person he was. He always made it seem like, what they were doing was in like their best interest and things like that. I think he was just such a fantastic player in terms of his social game. I think that he did a really good job of working closely with Brittany and just kind of riding out the middle a little bit. I think the issues with Michael is that he has a hard time, I think, when he is in I think the issues with Michael is that he has a hard time like pitching stuff himself. I think he's better with like having people on his side. I think that a lot of his decisions he made didn't really make much of sense and things like that. Like there were points he won comps that he really didn't need to win. Of course, again, biggest glaring error for me is just the way he handled that whole veto win with Kyle. It just really makes his game a little bit less, a lot more negative to me, because it kind of feels like the game was more important to him than that. But, you know, aside from that, I think that his game was very flawed. I think that his strategic game wasn't really there, to be honest with you. I don't think he's that great of a strategist. I think he's a good social player, but I don't think he's a great strategist, and things like that. I think a lot of the things that he did, were they impressive? Yes, but there are things that anybody really could have done, like getting Daniel out. Anybody could have gotten Daniel out. I don't think that's that impressive. I think when he won, you know, the vetoes that he won, anybody could have done that. So yes, he definitely did things, but people who wanted to claim him as like one of the best players, I don't see that. I don't see that at all. I think that he
definitely was like a beast, but more the physical and the social aspects.
I just don't think the strategy was there for me.
Yeah, like he definitely had strategy, but his strategic aspects definitely need work.
Yeah, I would love to. I mean,
like if he ever comes back, like I can see him doing well.
I think he's going to come back. I think definitely, like, if they do an All-Stars again, which I don't think they would, but I think if they ever were to, I do think Michael would come back, because it very much did seem like he is somebody that people are going to remember from this season and things like that. I do think he was a very good friend towards Taylor. I think
so too. Like he was definitely he's definitely somebody who actually truly cares for her and actually considers her a friend. Like obviously, besides a few things, obviously, like he said and did, obviously not great, but I mean, at least he apologized.
He said week one, especially, that I was upset about, because it was clear that he didn't. The thing with him is that, like,
he truly, at least he truly owned up and everything, but like, still, some things were not great. But I mean, he obviously wasn't as bad as others.
Yeah, the thing with him is, like, he clearly didn't like what was going on. He made it obvious he didn't like that, but he still contributed to it. He didn't try to put anyone down. He didn't try to, like, you know, try to put Taylor in a more positive light towards people. I just feel like there's more he could have done in terms of that. And that's what really, like, just kind of that's what kind of just puts this negative cloud over Michael's game for me, is that, yes, there are things to like about him, but there are also things that I don't really like that much. And I think that's what hurts, that, you know, that's how I feel about him overall.
Yeah, he just needs to like handle certain situations better, and he needs to like really think sometimes, you know, like yes, he's a good player and like he is a good person. He just has a lot of things he needs to like work on.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I think that's all we really need to say about Michael. It's a fantastic blindside. I love the way he leaves as well, where he's like, I have one thing I would like to say, and then he just leaves. It's so good. It's exactly
it's so funny.
His speech as well was iconic, when he's like calling Turner out, when he's calling out you know, when he's calling out Turner, when he's calling out Brittany. I mean, it was even him willing to turn on Brittany in the way that he did. I mean, it was so good to watch him fight for his life and try to gain go into like Alyssa and Taylor, trying to get them. He's like begging to Taylor at one point. It was so good. It's exactly the kind of crazy blindside we hope to see in a double eviction, but never actually happens. And the fact that we actually got to see it was just incredible. It's easily one of the best double evictions, I think, in a long time for me.
Oh yeah, it was like a really good one to watch. I definitely want to like go back and watch certain episodes again, just because there are definitely a few things I obviously want to rewatch, because it has been a while. So I probably will go back and watch some little nitpicks and stuff at some point.
Little nitpicks,
like things like that I'm forgetting, that I'm blanking on, or just that I kind of want to rewatch.
You mean little I don't know. I forgot what I was going to say. little breadcrumbs, little details.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just because it has been a while since I've seen obviously the episodes. I just wanted to rewatch a few.
I don't know. For me, even though it's been a while, it's still pretty fresh in my memory. I don't know why. I guess I just remember things, but
I mean, same, but there's just little things I'm like, okay, I need to go back and watch that.
I don't feel a need to rewatch a lot of this season aside from the finale, but yeah. That's really where we are at on Michael. All right, so it's clearly the same day, as you can tell. We definitely didn't like switch clothes or anything because we were like tired as hell. And
we were just so sleepy, especially like I worked for 10 hours. I was just like so tired. So we're like, let's just continue later.
We must have watched the first week of the season again. We were just that bored and distraught over it that we were just like, we just kind of wanted to take a break. No, in all seriousness, we're going to continue here, starting off with Final Five. So obviously after Michael leaves, typically in Big Brother, the last like couple weeks are pretty straightforward. There are some things to talk about though in Final Five that are very interesting, I think, with the way things play out. First of all, we have Monty winning HOH here. And pretty much from the beginning, he knows who he wants to target. He's still finding the trio like Alyssa, Brittany, and Taylor to be the most threatening. But this is around the time where Monty and Taylor like randomly get into a showmance for a little bit, which was like really surprising.
I know. I'm like, interesting.
And, yeah, so that seemed to be something for a little bit. And it's like, okay, this is really helping Taylor. She, Monty, very.
I mean, it definitely like helped her, but it also was interesting too because of like, even though he did apologize for like week 1, but like still.
Well, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Let's just say it's not exactly a positive showmance, like at all. For a little bit, it seemed like it was going to be. It seemed like this was going to be really good for Taylor, and that Monty really trusts her. I still think it was good for Taylor. But the showmance itself, we'll talk about in a little bit. But he nominates Alyssa and Brittany. And then things get interesting here because Brittany at this point, has been really close to Taylor the entire season. Taylor wants to go to the end with Brittany. Really the only person that's going to take Brittany to the end as well, which is something to note. She's really the only person that's willing to do that. Everybody else doesn't trust Brittany. Pretty much after what Michael said, everyone sees Brittany as like the number one target. They want her out immediately. So she decides to do this really idiotic thing of basically just turning on Taylor and trying to put the target onto her and trying to say that nobody can beat Taylor in the end and things like that. And I don't know. I really think this was like the wrong move for her. It comes across everything she did prior to the season. It comes across as really disingenuous.
Yeah.
And it just really kind of leaves a bad taste in your mouth. And I don't know, maybe it's just because of all the hate that Taylor received throughout the season from so many different people. This just felt like Brittany was like unnecessarily like piling on in a way that she didn't need to. The way that she phrased it, even like, I don't know, what did you think about the way Brittany went about this?
It was just completely like the wrong move for her because like she was really close allies with Taylor. So it was just like her just to do that was just not the right move for her because Taylor could have went all the way to the end with her.
Yeah, I think she definitely would have stuck to
so she kind of like screwed herself there.
Yeah, like here's the thing. I think Brittany loses either way. I don't think she was ever winning the game.
Well, yeah, but like also that made Taylor like trust like Monty, for instance, more.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So kind of like Brittany just like completely like screwed her game relationship with Taylor over.
Yeah, I think definitely Taylor, like I said, was really the only person that was going to take Brittany to the end. And I think Brittany had a chance of making it there. But her deciding to just abandon Taylor after all she's done for her in the game, after all the loyalty she's shown towards her and Michael, the fact that she just turned her back on her like that was just really fucking stupid. Brittany then surprisingly wins veto here, which was like the most unexpected win, I feel like, of the entire season. I was literally in shock when that happened. I was like, oh my God, Brittany won here, but also like freaking out because I was like, fuck, Taylor could actually go here. This could be really bad. So Brittany decides to make this pitch where she is going to try to get Basically what she's gonna try to do is get basically she wants to try to get Taylor to go on the block. She wants to convince Monty that Taylor is the bigger threat and things like that, and Taylor has to go up there. And Monty basically tells Taylor that, like, you know, you're going up and things like that, which she's obviously not happy about. But Brittany wants to suddenly try to, and this is where, again, her game just makes zero sense to me. Not only does she abandon Taylor, she suddenly tries to, like, get in good with Alyssa and, like, try to make this, like, really close deal with her, even though her and Alyssa have had zero game relationship the entire
I don't even think Brittany liked Alyssa.
Yeah, this was just so weird to me. She tries to make this deal with her to potentially get Taylor out. She's going to vote for Alyssa to stay, and she wants Turner to do the same thing. But Turner goes a different way because Alyssa basically thinks that, oh, Turner has my vote. There's no way he doesn't. Alyssa basically makes it this whole thing where Turner tells her that he's kind of up in the air and things like that. And she basically tells him that, like, you know, if you don't give me your vote, you're going to lose my friendship. And this understandably angers Turner. He's like, no, our friendship should have nothing to do with this whatsoever. It's entirely up to me as to what I should do. And he goes the other way, voting out Alyssa. Which let's talk about this real quick. The way Alyssa just completely destroys her relationship with Turner here. How did you think that?
Oh, I know. Oh, it was bad. Alyssa was. I don't think Alyssa's very good as a strategist.
What strategy?
Like, no, like she was there just to vibe and just try and be on like Love Island or like Bachelor in Paradise or something.
Yeah.
Like she's just like this young girl who just doesn't really do much. Like, she's okay, I guess, in comps or socially, but she just like really screws herself in that sense. She's just not good under pressure, and she's not good at like talking to people in that way.
Yeah, so we get to Turner voting out Alyssa. It goes to a tie. Monty does decide to vote out Alyssa because he wants to save Taylor. And with that, Alyssa is the fifth boot of this season. I don't want to dwell on Alyssa real quick because, to be honest with you, I don't have much to say about her. I really don't. I feel like her impact in this season is largely geared towards Kyle most of the time. You know, most of the season, I feel like it was mainly just, Alyssa and Kyle. There isn't really a lot to say about her besides that. I think that a lot of this season, she was just kind of there. I honestly kind of forgot that she was there. The most she did all season is when she spoke really just like microaggressively towards like Joseph and was like shoving her fingers in like,
that was so gross.
Like that's really the only thing she ended up contributing, to be honest with you. I mean, she put up a good fight this week, I'll say that, but she also destroys her relationship with Turner, who I think was really her only chance of staying. He was the only person that was going to vote for her until Brittany devised this plan, and then he changed entirely. I also forgot to mention, this is where Taylor, Monty, and Turner realize their best chances at the end is taking each other, so they make a final three of sorts. And I mean, just a horrible player all around. I can't really tell you anything she did on her own. I don't understand why there were so many people that wanted to keep her around when I don't really think she benefited really anybody's game except maybe Kyle's. But even at that, I think Kyle honestly hurt himself by focusing so much on Alyssa. I think he had a much better path if he was willing to turn on her, and he didn't. And also, of course, you know, drop the racist narrative that he was constantly peddling. That would also have helped. But with Alyssa, I feel like she was just kind of an extension of that. She was someone that was tied to Kyle, and I think she could have used Kyle to her advantage. She could have played a much stronger game, but it just didn't really feel like she was playing much of the game for the season. So, yeah, I mean, I was honestly surprised she made it all the way to 5. I was happy she didn't make it all the way to 2 because I thought that's what was going to happen. Like, she was going to be dragged to the end. But I was very happy to see that was not the case because I think out of the entire final 5, I mean, she was easily the least deserving. So,
yeah, like, okay, Alyssa overall, like, I didn't hate her, but she wasn't my favorite either. She was just someone who's just kind of there for me. Obviously, like, her microaggressions towards Joseph were just disgusting and gross. And like any little like comments that she made were pretty bad. But like other than like game wise, she just didn't really bring anything to the table at all. She was literally just someone who was just there to like vibe and just have fun, have a good time. She's just like this young girl who was probably just recruited by 23's Alyssa.
Yeah.
Because weren't they friends, right? Yeah.
Yeah, she was. Yeah, they were literally, which is so funny. They're both from Sarasota. They're both named Alyssa. Yeah, they were literally.
I mean, I actually liked Alyssa from 23.
Yeah, I didn't mind her.
But yeah, this Alyssa was just very like bland, just boring. Didn't like hate her overall, but she just didn't really bring much at all. She's just very like basic. Maybe she's nice outside of the game. Who knows? I haven't really heard much about her at all.
I think her and Kyle broke up.
Yeah, that's what I heard. But after that, like I haven't really heard much at all about her.
Yeah.
But yeah,
she's on the challenge. She's gonna be on this season of the challenge for some reason.
Yeah.
Horrible at challenges. Let me just say, like some of the worst.
Oh yeah, she was. I don't know. I think early because a little bit earlier, I was like, okay, challenges, but iffy. But
I think she held the record for the farthest to make it without winning a single comp, which is like. I guess that's impressive, but also not because of what she didn't do anything to like get there.
She really just like was just chilling. Like she just hasn't done much at all. Like overall, she's just not that great of a player. Yeah. So this boot was actually just very refreshing for me because like she's honestly gives like a Final 5 kind of vibe.
Oh yeah. Honestly, I think she probably would have gone like the week that I think she would have gone like week 3 if the veto wasn't won by Brittany and Mike. I think definitely she could have potentially gone week 3. I think she could have gone the week Daniel left. She would have if Kyle had used that veto on Taylor's HOH, she goes then. So honestly, a lot of it wasn't even due to anything she did. It was there were people that wanted to protect her for some reason.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, not much more to say about Alyssa. That's kind of it for Final 5. Now, Final 4 is definitely one of the most exciting weeks to talk about. It starts off on an amazing note where we get to the quiz portion, and it's neck and neck between Brittany and Taylor. We get to the last question. Taylor wins the Final 4 HOH, and it was such an amazing moment. Just seeing the arc that she's had this entire season and seeing how there were so many times where people were either underestimating her or constantly just like devaluing her in the game or saying all these like, racist microaggressions about her or assuming things about her or just counting her out. The way that she was able to get there at Final 4, it was just such an amazing thing to watch. It's like, oh my God, Taylor might actually win this thing. This might actually happen now. And I think we after Final 4, holy shit, it's happening.
Yeah, I was like over the moon when she won this HOH because it just gave me like complete Paris vibes in BB Can 6. Where just like, because obviously Paris didn't win any comps except for the final 2 HOHs, which were the most
Taylor
important.
Had one previous HOH.
Yeah, but like this just gave me like complete Paris vibes in that sense, and just like very underestimated vibes, and it just made me so happy. And this was such a wholesome moment, and I was so proud of her that she won this HOH.
Yeah, it was so great to watch, especially just seeing like how overjoyed that she was that it happened. It was it was so amazing to watch. And it just, again, after everything she had been through, it was great to watch. Final 4, not a ton to talk about. Very straightforward week. Obviously, she wins HOH, puts up Brittany and Turner. At this point, Monty is her final 2. But things get a little bit rough when there is this scene in which Monty is wearing headphones and Taylor just like jokingly takes them out, doesn't, you know, just like as a joke, isn't trying to do anything like maliciously. And Monty completely takes this the wrong way. He goes right to Turner, starts saying that Taylor was, you know, saying all this shit about him, and that Taylor was trying to like steal his headphones. It was
this was so stupid and toxic.
He goes into this whole like misogynistic tirade, and it really just makes you think that much worse of Monty, especially when he had just apologized for all the things he said about Taylor. It's like, it just comes across as completely disingenuous. It comes across like,
it was very disingenuous, very just very fake and just not real at all. And it was just super toxic too, because like it's just and misogynistic, because like it looked like he was just being fake the whole time.
Yeah, it's like, why were you even apologizing to her if you weren't sorry? Because it was pretty obvious to me after this that he wasn't sorry, and that it all was kind of just like, you know, for shits and giggles, I guess. And it was just really disgusting to watch. And look, the Monty and Taylor showmance I thought was super random in the first place, but I was like, okay, as long as they're happy, that's what matters. But just seeing the way that he treated her after them getting really close and her generally considering him to be someone she cared about, for him to do that to her, especially to go over to Turner and to start ranting about her to Turner, just really bad all around. And it's
awful.
Monty is definitely someone that I think is easily one of the worst people on the cast. He, I don't think, has apologized for what he did here. He won't admit that he said anything like misogynistic. It's just,
he's just
really
being very like hypocritical. He's being like just terrible. Like,
it really just shows the kind of person that he is, that he has, that he enters this showmance and then he abandons it just because she jokingly took his headphones out. That's literally all this was over. It was over headphones. Like, let's not forget about this. It was so stupid the way that played out.
Like, I just thought he was being super immature too, because like he's a grown man.
Yeah, it was like, it was very much, it felt like high
like
school.
Who cares, sir? They're just headphones.
Yeah, it was so stupid. But it very much shows you that Monty is somebody that, you know, he isn't quite as, you know, he isn't somebody that is as remorseful as he seems. He isn't as genuine as he seems. He just comes across as like really fake and cocky. And when things aren't completely going his way, he just wants to like abandon it immediately. And it's just, I hated every second of it. You can even tell Turner like wasn't even into this conversation. He's like, why are you talking to me about this? So you know, not great at all for Monty here. But the big thing to talk about, of course, is getting down to the veto. The veto is won by Monty, and it was pretty obvious at this point what was going to happen. However, Taylor kind of wants to make a move here. She wants to target Turner this week. She wanted Monty to target Turner last week, actually. But
like
he didn't want to do it.
Like here, she's actually trying to keep Brittany.
Yeah, she actually doesn't want Brittany to go. She thinks Turner is like the bigger threat. And he even told her last week.
I actually feel like Brittany could have been an easy win too against.
Oh yeah.
Just because she hasn't really done much, and her jury management, like, was her jury management was like the worst
of everybody. Yeah, it was horrible. I don't think Brittany had any chance of winning against literally anyone. So I don't understand why.
I feel like even Michael wouldn't have voted for her.
No, I don't think he would have, and I just don't really understand why.
If it's like a Brittany Taylor final too, I think Taylor still wins unanimously.
Yeah, easily. I just don't really understand why Brittany was viewed as like the biggest threat here, especially when she didn't do anything. But yeah, let's just get into it. Brittany leaves Final Four. I don't have a ton to say about Brittany because, to be honest with you, it's very hard to talk about her and not just kind of see her as like Michael's number one, see her as somebody that was doing a lot of Michael's bidding. She did have deals like on the side. I think early on, she had some really good moments where, you know, when this girls' alliance was being formed and things like that, she wasn't a part of that. She wanted to be her own person and things like that. But she still contributed to stuff that was just really gross to watch. It felt like by the end of the season, it very much felt like she was questioning her friendship with Taylor, trying to question if it was like genuine or not. only because Taylor wasn't going to bat for her as much and things like that. She just immediately thought that Taylor like wasn't on her side, which just didn't make any sense. And once again, you turn on Taylor, you pretty much end up leaving. So yeah, I don't really have a ton to say about Brittany. I think she was honestly a huge disappointment. I think she very well could have played a very strong game. I think honestly, you know, if Michael left a little bit sooner, I think Brittany actually had a stronger chance of like doing well. But because she was so tied to Michael, I feel like even if she gets to the end, it's very hard to differentiate her game from Michael's. So yeah, just all around, not really that great of a player.
Yeah, she definitely had like decent moments, but she was just I was just very like hit or miss with her the whole season.
Yeah.
Like she said some like pretty shitty things to Taylor and about her. And like, so, yeah,
it was her friend.
Yeah, like Taylor's supposed to be her friend, but she's not treating her like one at times, which is really bad, really shitty.
Yeah. And I will give her this,
especially around Pryor.
Yeah, I will give her this real quick before you say anything else. Like, I think Brittany has said, I believe she said something along the lines of like the biggest thing she regrets is the way she treated Taylor and didn't value her as much as an ally. So she said that at least.
I mean,
but
that's
at the same
good.
time, I still take a lot of that with a grain of salt because I wonder, did she just say this because of the outcome with Taylor, or did she say this because she was generally sorry? Because like Michael, I feel like is genuine. Brittany, I'm not so sure. It's very hard to tell.
Yeah. It's just hard to tell with her. Like she seems like she could be a nice person, but she also seems like she has like just this fake and not nice side.
Yeah, it just comes across
so
as very fake.
It's like hard to like really root for her and like her. Like I don't hate her overall, but like I'm hoping
There's way worse people for sure.
Oh, yeah. Like I hope she apologized to Taylor, like, and is genuine about it. Because like it'd be nice if they're like actually genuine friends again, but
yeah,
hopefully.
I know she's friends with Michael. I just don't know if she's friends with Brittany.
Yeah, it's hard to say. But yeah, overall, like I was just very like iffy with her the whole time. Didn't hate her, but she was just kind of like okay.
Yeah, so that's Brittany. And now we get to the most exciting part, I think, of this entire podcast. We're going to talk about the finale here, which did not go the way I think anybody really expected it to. Because we get to parts 1 and 2. And unfortunately, Taylor does not end up winning either part. I believe Turner wins part 1. Super random, may I add. That
it was,
I would not have expected Turner to do as well in as he did. I thought for sure this is like Taylor's comp. She's going to win this. She doesn't win. Turner ends up winning that one.
I literally thought Taylor could have won part 1.
Yeah, part 2, it's obviously a lot more on the physical side. And, you know, when you have someone like Monty in there who is very physical, who has that physical capability that he's shown all season, it was obvious he was going to win. But then we get to part 3. And part 3, it comes down, obviously, to Monty versus Turner, who at this point, Turner believes that Monty is going to take him to the end. They've kind of had this agreement of sorts throughout the season. So I was like really kind of done at this point. I was like, fuck, okay, I guess Taylor's not winning. I don't think that this is actually, I don't know if this is actually going to happen. I feel like knowing Big Brother, we're going to have the 2 guys taking each other to the end. It's going to be a super boring final 2. But I was trying to keep hope that maybe Monty will stick to his word. Maybe he will. Maybe there is a chance that he cuts Turner here and takes Taylor. And we'll talk about what happens. But Monty does end up winning the final HOH. And how are you feeling at this point?
When he won final HOH, I'm like hoping he takes Taylor, but I'm also worried because he could take Turner too. So I'm like, ugh. I'm like, come on, Taylor, just like give him this really amazing speech before he makes a decision. Like, I was like so nervous for her.
Yeah, because it turns out that, we get to the actual outcome, and it seems like Taylor didn't even really need to do much convincing because Monty goes into this at the final 2 being like, okay, there's one thing that is missing from my resume, and that is a big move. And I'm like, oh God, he's talking about Taylor. He's talking about taking out Taylor here. I was so fucking worried. And then he takes out Turner, and Turner is the last juror of the season. I was in shock when this happened. I was like, oh my God, this is like,
I'm like, he actually did that.
No, it's a terrible play, like all around.
I mean, yeah, like he actually did that move. Like it's a bad move for him, but I'm happy that he took her. But I'm happy he took her.
Yeah, I think it's so funny that even after people are questioning why he took Turner, he still thinks like this is his best move of the season, when I don't even think this was even close to his best move. I think his best move of the season was using the veto on Alyssa and, you know, Michael going up. But even at that, I don't really credit Monty for that. I credit more Taylor for that, because she's the one who kind of put that idea in his head. So yeah, I mean, just really, really stupid move for Monty all around. I'm glad he did it. I'm glad he did it for sure.
I mean, yeah.
But it's still a really stupid move. Let's talk about Turner a little bit.
Because I feel like he would have had a bigger shot against him to win, but yeah. I'm just happy he did that.
Yeah, and Turner has said on record that he was going to stick to his deal with Monty and take him to the end, which I'm glad he didn't win, because then we would have gotten a Monty Turner final two where Monty probably wins in that sense.
Yeah.
I assume he does in that scenario. I've kind of given my thoughts on how I feel about Turner. But how did you feel about him as a player?
As a player, he like really actually did surprise me. Like he definitely had his moments where he was like hit or miss. Like good physically. He was very good socially. Just strategically, he was very iffy. Like he had his smart moments, but he was also not. But then he had his not smart moments. So, he was definitely a fun one to watch, and like I absolutely love him outside of the house. Like he's just like him on Twitter is just so funny. He's such a troll. Like he just kills me. But yeah, in the house, definitely like not my favorite player, but I didn't dislike him at all. Because he actually seems like he really loves Taylor and like really genuinely cares for her. So which makes me very happy. So he's actually someone who's actually a good person, and I actually did really enjoy him.
Yeah, so I'll just sum up how I feel about Turner real quick. I think socially, very good. I think he's a good social player. I think early on, he was really having a hard time. I remember people were saying that they wanted to target Turner and things like that, and they saw him as like a big social threat. But I think he really turned that around in week 3 through the leftovers, developing some really good social capital. I think physically, I mean, he won like a lot of comps, and he really was in that way. Strategically, I'm not gonna lie, I think he's kind of horrible. I'm not gonna lie. Because listen, yes, he did make some pretty big moves in the game, but none of those moves I feel like you can really credit him for. All the moves that he made, he was kind of pushed into doing by other people. Amira, the leftovers wanted that to happen, and so he ended up going in that direction in an effort to appease the leftovers, but also to put himself in a better spot. Him targeting Kyle basically was due to what Michael said. He thought he was in a position where he couldn't even trust Kyle. He wanted to work with Kyle still, but realized, wait, no, I'm in this position where I kind of have to target Kyle here. So I don't credit him for that either. I don't even really credit him for winning HO. I don't credit him for the Michael move either, because again, that was all like Taylor's doing. That was, other people's doing. Like everyone wanted Michael to go. It was just Turner was the one to actually do it. So to me, he just has very little agency of his own. I feel like Turner at the end, he has a very hard time claiming a move that was all his own, something that he did for himself. Everything he did, I feel like he just kind of latched onto other people. He started with I feel like he started with Kyle and then switched over to Monty. It was always those two that like he felt the closest with. And also Pooch. I mean, very early on. Pooch,
yeah, sometimes he definitely like did just latch onto them a lot for sure. Yeah. Like just played those guys game.
Yeah.
But like he definitely had agency, just not as much as he should.
Yeah, that's really my thing. Like I think he definitely had the right idea points. I think he just needed to execute things differently, and I think he needed to recognize that like I don't think Turner was playing the optimal game for himself. I think he was playing it for a Turner, a Kyle, a Michael. I don't think he was doing it for himself. And I think he needed to just kind of like recognize that, because that's really what I have a hard time with when it comes to Turner as a character, especially postseason. I think he's hilarious. I think he's very entertaining. Like I said, I loved his beef with like Jasmine early on in the season. I thought that was a lot of fun.
That was so funny because they don't even dislike each other. I just think it's so funny.
Yeah, honestly, I'd love to see them on The Amazing Race or something. That'd be kind of
fun. My god, that'd be so funny if they just went on that show.
But
just be like a bestie duo.
Yeah. Be the festy besties. No, please don't. God, no. Don't call it that. No. In all seriousness, Turner, I just don't really have a ton to say about. I don't think he played all that well. I think he did well socially and physical wise, but the strategic game, it just really wasn't there. Could be due to how young he is. I know people always say like, the older you play these games, the better you're going to be strategically. And I do think there is something to be said about that. But we also did just see a Survivor season in which someone almost won the game unanimously and was fairly young in Carson. So I don't know.
It says here he's only 23.
Yeah, so I don't know if the age necessarily is the reasoning for that or if he's just not a good strategist. I'm kind of inclined to believe he's just not a good strategist, but I don't know. Maybe one day he'll come back and we'll see, but that's really all I have to say about Turner. With that said, though, let's get to the good stuff because we get to the finale here. The final two is Monty and Taylor. And honestly, I don't think we could have had a better way to represent like the new Big Brother versus like the old Big Brother better than we did with Taylor and Monty. With Monty being like the kind of person that we see win every single season, not really doing a lot to really play that strong of a game, kind of just coasting on his charisma, kind of coasting on his physical appearance, coasting on the fact that like he does really well in comps and things like that. And because of that, I don't feel like Monty has a lot to say in terms of things he did that was like really that unique to him. And I think performance here is honestly really bad. He's kind of just repeating the same answer like over and over again.
His performance, like his final two performances was not that great at all.
I don't even remember his final speech.
I don't either. Like his final two speech is just like, it just kind of like gives vibes of like, he keeps repeating himself. He isn't really like taking ownership. He's just kind of like saying a few, like one or two things he did.
Yeah, anytime he's asked about the biggest move, he always says like cutting Turner. There are other moments where he's asked questions. I don't remember what they were, but like he doesn't really answer them. It's just a really bad final two performance all around. And I feel like it's, again, in any other, like this is the kind of winner we've been seeing recently. And that is why it is so refreshing for Taylor to come out here in the finale dress that they were making fun of her for in the beginning, for her to actually wear it, which was incredible to see.
It was iconic because like it was literally ridiculous when they were making fun of her for that.
Yeah, it was so stupid, especially because they were telling her to model it. Like it wasn't even like she didn't say like, "Oh, I'm gonna walk around myself." Like they were telling her to do it and then made fun of her for it. It was like what the hell?
I absolutely hated that. It was gross.
Yeah, but her performance here is maybe, and again, this could be recency bias. I'm well aware of that. Might be the best final two performance I've ever seen on Big Brother. I think she just absolutely kills it here. Not only does she answer every question so succinctly and so passionately, but she also just does such a great job of kind of showing this narrative that's developed in Big Brother and why that doesn't always have to be the narrative. We don't always need to have somebody who has won a bunch of comps, who has made all these moves. Sometimes all you need to do is just have a really strong social game, show who you are personally, make good connections with people. Every single member of the jury came out of that house glowing about Taylor. Everybody wanted her to win the game, which was insane considering how the beginning of the season went. I don't think she could have given a better jury performance than she did here. It's just easily some of the best.
Absolutely phenomenal. And like, I honestly I always just like go back and like watch her speech for if I'm in a finale for an org, for instance. Like I was just kind of like using it as a guide and stuff like that. And it's just her speech is definitely one that's going to be it's memorable, and it's going to be discussed for many years because it literally made history, and it was just fantastic and just very inspirational, and she couldn't have said anything better.
Yeah, I saw a thread like after the season came out, and it was every single final two speech we've ever had. And Taylor's like stuck out immediately to me because a lot of the speeches we get, they're very cut and dry. They're very much kind of the same thing. Taylor's is something wholly unique. We don't get to see someone who played like she did win the game, let alone, get to the final two, let alone win. We don't get to see someone who didn't win a ton of comps, usually making it to the end and have to kind of make that case for herself as to why the comp wins aren't really that important. But she really just sells it here. She does such a good job of making this case of like, we don't need, our final two to be someone who's always winning comps. We don't need it to be someone who's always, in a great spot. Sometimes all we need is to vote on like persistence and things like that. The two parts of her speech that stick out the most to me, I would say, is her talking about how she's she's not a sword, she's a shield, which is something that, she's not a victim, she's a victor. I think that quote alone is something that a lot of people are always going to go back to. But then also her talking about how like she's so much more than the wins that she's had. And,
I love that part. It just makes me it just makes my heart like so happy when she said that. And and then also seeing everyone's faces of how like proud they are of her just made me so happy.
When she's appealing to the women who said numerous times throughout the season they wanted a woman to win. Almost every single woman that played this season said, we want a woman to win this season. And she reminds them of that. She reminds them, you guys were very adamant about this. And you can see Alyssa and Indy are nodding along because they know exactly what she's talking about. It's the way she was able to take these little breadcrumbs of information that she got throughout the season and just drop them into her speech perfectly that really was just so impressive to watch, and seeing everyone just agree with her and love what she's saying. It was just amazing. I loved every single second of her speech here. I really can't just praise it enough.
Oh, me neither. Like, it's literally something that we can just watch anytime. Like, watch it daily, watch it every day, watch it anytime, because it's just amazing and phenomenal, and definitely the best speech of all time.
Yeah, very much so.
It had a lot of passion and heart.
Yeah, and it's the kind of speech where it's like, how do you not vote for her after that? Like, come on. That was like, this was on a whole other level in terms of finale speeches. Like her saying that, like, I can be the winner. You're not going to do it in vain if you vote for me here. It was just so incredible to watch. And
it's so good.
It's just, it's going to go down as one of the best speeches, not just in Big Brother, but I think in reality TV history. I think people are always going to find themselves going back to this one. Just so incredible. And thankfully, I mean, after all of the mistreatment that she received, seeing her actually win the game almost unanimously, with Turner being the only person over Monty.
Yeah, Turner's the only one who voted for Monty, which makes sense. Like,
well, apparently he did that because he thought everybody else was voting Monty, so he just went that way.
Mean, if he knew, because he probably would have voted for Taylor, and she would have won unanimously.
Yeah, she would have won unanimously if that.
As she should.
Oh, very much so. Now, before we do talk about Taylor, because we talked a great deal amount of Taylor, I do want to talk about the runner-up for a second in Monty. I pretty much summed it up before. I really just don't think his game is all that impressive. Yes, he won a bunch of comps. Yes, he made probably the biggest move of the season in using that veto on Alyssa to take Michael out. But it wasn't really his idea. He was another person that I feel like was kind of just like coaxed by what other people were telling him to do. I think that he was in a very dominant position, but what's impressive to me is not that you're in a dominant position, it's what you really do with it. And I just don't feel like Monty did anything that spectacular. There's nothing that really sticks out to me as like, this is something Monty did that was like really incredible, that got him to the end. And, you can't really disagree with it. You can't really argue with that at all. Like, it's such a strong thing they did. I don't see that with Monty. And to me, not just because of that, but also his cockiness throughout his speech, him just being so sure that, he made the best move of the season and taking Turner out, him just completely just misunderstanding the game that he played. To me, that's why he lost the game. And I think he very deservingly lost the game.
Yeah, he definitely made moves, of course. He was a good, physical player, and he had a good social game. But, and he did have good strategic senses too, but not as good as, a Taylor, obviously.
Yeah.
But he definitely had his strategies, but, he definitely wasn't the strongest player at all. Because, I echo you that he definitely did, he was another one who didn't really do a lot of his own moves. He just listened to others. He listened to Taylor, or Turner, things like that.
Michael, Kyle, yeah.
He listened to everyone else, and it was their moves. But he has a little bit of it'd be part of his moves too, but not as much. He didn't have much say in that sense.
Yeah.
He just did it, but it was someone else's move. But overall, not a decent player, not the best, not the strongest. He probably would have won against
the kind of player we see all the time. There's
Yeah.
nothing that special.
He probably would have He probably would have won against Turner.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, overall, not the strongest player, but still decent. As a person, I can't root for him.
Yeah,
especially because he did not apologize for the last few weeks. He never apologized to Taylor, which is just shows what kind of person he is. And I feel even if he apologized now, it's too late.
Yeah, and Taylor's made it clear she wants nothing to do with him. So yeah, I think he is just a really terrible person. I think Monty is the kind of person where he just kind of gravitates towards whoever has the power and whatever is going to help him, in terms of whatever's going to benefit him, he's just kind of going to run with.
He's very power hungry and very cocky.
Yeah, if he needs to, if he needs to be really just microaggressive and just constantly put down Taylor, he will do that. If he needs to feed into this stereotype of her, he will do that. If he needs to, but then now if he's in a position where he needs to work with her, he will suddenly do that. But he only does it if it really benefits him as a player. And I feel that's really what we saw with him throughout the season. It's just, he doesn't come across as a genuine guy to me. He comes across as a guy that can't really admit to his faults. And honestly, to me, it feels the only reason he apologized to Taylor was because he felt he needed to. He needed Taylor's vote. So he wouldn't vote for him to go over Jasmine, which just makes it so much more of a disgusting conversation to think about.
Yeah, he doesn't seem like a very genuine person at all in that sense. And he's just very fake.
I don't know why he was asked back for the challenge. I'll say
very egotistical. No idea. God. I mean, the challenge definitely has a lot of problematic people.
Why him? Why Monty? Out of everybody.
I don't know.
Joseph, I get. But why Monty and Alyssa? I don't understand that. And Amira too. Why do we need to bring her back? But yeah, just not a fan of Monty at all.
Probably because he's good at challenges, and then Alyssa just gives vibes that she go on a beach and it's more Love Island for her.
I guess, but I don't know.
And then Amira, I have no idea. Amira has no job.
yeah, maybe. But yeah, Monty
probably lost her job for being a terrible person.
Probably, yeah. Monty's just a really shitty person all around. And I will say, he was someone that did turn me back around on him for a bit, but then completely lost all my respect with what he did.
Completely lost me.
What he did to Taylor at the end. I think he lost basically everybody's respect after that, deservingly so, because I think he really just he really just completely ruined any sort of goodwill he had after that. And I think that, again, if he was against Turner, probably would have won the game, but thankfully we don't even need to think about that, because I would have hated if Monty was the person to represent this season. And I think that we would be looking back at this season a lot differently than we are now. But thankfully, That is not the case. And we can say we have one of the best winners in a very long time in Taylor, who not only is the first official the first Black woman to win official Big Brother US, because obviously, you know, Tamar Braxton was technically the first Black woman to win, but
hers was like celebrity Big Brother, so it's a little different.
Big Brother, she is the first Black woman to win, but also the
I will say Tamar is still a fantastic person and winner.
Yes, but she also is the first person who has ever both won the game and won America's Favorite Player, which I think is just perfectly just sums up this season overall. Taylor was just the main character throughout the entire thing. I don't think you can watch this season and not see that Taylor is the common denominator in everything. Every time somebody leaves, it's because they were so focused on wanting to target Taylor. Every time somebody was suddenly succeeding, it was because they were working with Taylor. Every single time that, you know, it seemed like people were trying to portray Taylor in a certain way, she would always find a way to she would always find a way to prove them wrong. Every single time someone, you know, tried to count Taylor out, she would always find a way to bring herself back up. It's just such an incredible underdog arc all around, the likes of which I don't think we're ever going to see again. I'll say that right off the bat. I don't think we're going to see a win like this again. And that's what makes it so incredibly, just incredible, just so unique to watch, and just so revolutionary to watch in the way that it was.
Yeah, this was like a very inspiring, very important win, very effective, just a very incredible, beautiful win that should, like, honestly, there shouldn't be like another win like this, because this is very important. And like, I just don't think it would be the same if there was another win like this. Because this is just a very special win, and it like made me so happy and just makes my heart like just very whole whenever I like talk about this win and when I saw it. And I'm just so happy we went back and like continued the season, because
just for her win, honestly.
Just for this win. It was just like a very special win.
Yeah, that's what really motivated me to continue, was when I heard the like, oh, she's actually doing a lot better. I was like, okay, I actually want to watch the rest of the season and like see how it all plays out. And it's such an amazing story to watch from beginning to end, seeing the way that she was treated, seeing these horrible misconceptions that people had about her, the way that we're stereotyping her, when she was never doing any of that. She approached every situation with so much grace, so much courtesy, so much kindness. She was always trying to be there for people. She never counted anybody out. She always tried to work with the people that she needed to. Yes, a lot of the time she was fighting for her life, but she kind of had to play that way because so many people were always seeing her as like somebody they could get out, somebody they didn't want the game, and she proved all of them wrong. And I think
because she is very kind, sincere, and amazing person that just deserves the best in the world always.
Definitely one of the most kindest people that I think we've seen play Big Brother in a very long time, especially with all the stuff she dealt with. The way she was able to handle it in such a careful manner is just very impressive to watch, because I feel like a lot of people could not have gone through what she did, and she very much was able to. She, you know, was able to come out of every situation with her head held high and still find a way to remain on top. And I think she just absolutely dominated this entire season. And again, it's such a unique win that while I don't think we're going to see a win like hers before, I do hope it paves the way in showing that you don't have to be a comp beast to win Big Brother. You don't have to be, you know, having all these strategic moves in order to win Big Brother. Sometimes all you need to do is just be a good person and get close to people and kind of latch onto them, but also have these very subtly strategic things that you are doing.
Yeah, like social and strategic game is way more important to me than physical. Like, yeah, obviously comps are important, but not as important, because just because I will say with comps, they're important, but it depends on what you do with the comp wins. Because like if it's like a very strategic move, that's good. But if it's just like a move that you're just like, okay, I'm just gonna put these two people up. That's not important. That's just very like basic and very simple.
Yeah, but all around, I mean, I just think that Taylor is such an amazing person. I was so happy to see her get that win. Like I said, I think knowing that she wins, it as hard as it is to watch those first couple weeks, makes it a little bit more bearable knowing that she's going to come out victorious in all of this. She's going to prove all of them wrong. She's going to have this amazing win where virtually everybody except for like a couple people are apologizing to her. Now everybody wants to like be besties with her and like get close to her. It's just great to see. And I think she just really killed this entire season. One of the best winners that we've seen Big Brother in a very long time. And like I said, I do hope kind of paves the way for between her and Kevin Jacobs winning BB Can. I mean, very similar games in terms of like, now obviously Taylor dealt with a lot worse than Kevin did, but similar in the sense where like was on the block first and was seen as like this, you know, house target, and then completely turned things around to where nobody was ever coming after, you know, her. Although there were definitely points where people were coming after Taylor, she always had ways to where it didn't benefit them to come for her. And I think she really did kill it in that way. I still say her best week is easily what she did with Michael going, the way she was able to take the target off of her, Alyssa, and Brittany was just incredible to watch.
It was amazing.
Yeah, and then just having it all end with such an incredible and powerful speech, just amazing to watch, and just easily one of the best winners of Big Brother in a very long time. I think we said all we needed to. Is there anything else that you want to say before we wrap up our overall thoughts on this season?
Yeah, she's just like a very amazing, wonderful person. Yeah. And like she's just very powerful. She's phenomenal, fantastic, and just overall caring and kind person. And she just deserves the best. And this win is just wonderful. And I'm literally like always in awe, just like talking about her win. And
me too.
So just such a special win for her, and like her story is just super inspiring and emotional, and I'm like so proud of her always. And it'd be so cool if we ran into her at like a Beyonce concert, because that'd be iconic.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, that is the amazing winner known as Taylor Hale, and that is it for our coverage of Big Brother 24. I will say right off the bat, very up and down season. Just covering it again, it's a very up and down season. It's very unpredictable. There are many points where like we thought it was going to get really hard to watch. The Dyer Fest week, the first week, the week where Turner was HOH before Kyle left, I think was a really tough one, because it seemed like it was just going to be those two like steamrolling to the end. But it was a season where like every single time we thought we knew the trajectory, something would happen to change it, whether it's Paloma having to leave and canceling the boss battle, whether it's, you know, whether it's the leftovers being formed and completely overthrowing the power structure, whether it's Kyle being exposed for the racist things he said throughout the season and everybody voting him out because of it, but also because of, you know, the kind of player that he was. You know, whether it's Taylor winning HOH, every single time we thought the season was going a certain way, it went a different way. And so in that way, I can say this is not a boring season. That's the one thing I can say about 24. Is it a rough season to watch at times? Yes, but knowing the outcome, I think it's a much better season than I really did expect it to by the end.
Oh yeah, it's like it's very up and down, but like, and definitely like hard to watch at times. But I am very glad that we continued it, because we wouldn't get to see Taylor's journey if we didn't finish the season. And it's just like super important that we did. And this win and the season should definitely be discussed just for Taylor, like for many years to come. And
I think it's going to be. I think this is definitely going to be a season that people look back on very fondly, but I think they're also going to look back on it and really just kind of talk about the cast overall and where they went wrong. And because I mean, it doesn't change the fact this is still one of the worst casts like ever.
Oh yeah, definitely.
No question about that whatsoever. The only people that I can generally say I like from this season are Taylor, Joseph, Turner, maybe Indy because of how she's been postseason. Michael, I'm iffy on. The rest, I don't care about.
And then Jasmine a little bit.
Yeah, Jasmine's fun to watch. But the rest, I literally don't care about. That's kind of where I'm at. And when it's like very, very few people to talk about, yeah, I mean, it's one of the worst casts for sure. In fact, not to pat ourselves on the back, but we did sit here and say when the preseason came out that Taylor was the only person that seemed interesting, and she won the whole.
Yeah, there was a few people that were like okay to me, but like I think the only people I really like truly liked preseason were her and Michael.
Yeah,
like I thought it was cool that Michael's an Orger, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like those two are the only ones that really stood out.
Yeah.
Everyone else were just like, I didn't dislike them, but I was just like, okay, they're all right, I guess.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, I think we've covered all we needed to with this season. I know it has been long overdue, especially because I don't know if you know, but we literally have BB25 coming out in 2 days now. Not only that, but I think we lost Aly.
A few moments later.
Yeah. Okay. I forgot what we were saying. Yeah, like I said, it was great getting to finally talk about the season after so fucking long. We finally were able to do it, and I'm just really happy about that because I do think it is a very important season to talk about, and especially after Taylor's win, I was like, we have to cover this. Like, there's no way we can't talk about this season, just because it's such a incredible victory all around and such a crazy season to talk about. I think it was definitely something that like we had to do a video on for sure. So I'm very happy that we did. And thankfully we finally did, because I don't know if you know, Aly, but in a couple days, there's a premiere starting of the new season of BB25. Wait, hold on. Hold that thought real quick. There is a new season of, oh shit, hold on. I'm trying to add a background here and it's not letting me because it's limited to like a certain amount. We're waiting for, oh, there it is, BB25. Yes, BB25. The cast reveal is out. Woo! So we will be doing a cast assessment very soon. Very excited to see how the season turns out. And I will say, I think you'll agree with me, so far, feeling much better about this cast compared to this one.
Me too.
Much better about this cast. So I think we're in for, I think, what's going to be a fun season. So I'm looking forward to seeing,
I mean, I hope.
Crossing our fingers, of course, because, we don't know how that's going to go. We are not going to be doing a live stream for the first episode because it's going to be boring. It's going to be people moving into the house and doing a comp, and there's nothing to talk about. So we will be doing a video for the first episode.
I think we're going to be doing a podcast. I think we're going to do a podcast for that like Thursday.
Yeah, I think that's what we
like the day after the premiere.
Yeah, I think that's what we agreed on as well.
Or maybe Wednesday. We'll see. Depending on the time.
There's not going to be much to talk about regardless. So
it's probably going to be really short.
It is a 90-minute premiere, so there's that.
Okay.
So maybe something exciting might happen. I mean, there's
we'll see.
Like Frankie Grande and Brittany and Daniel Reyes, that is incredibly just like, it's like the definition of campy, and it looks so stupid, but like I'm excited to see what that's all about, and it being their 25th season that is airing at a very strange time when reality TV is going to be dominating pretty much everything for a while because we don't have many shows to talk about. I think that's going to be a very interesting season to see how it plays out. And I feel like they're going to be pulling out all the stops for 25 for sure. So look forward to that. We will be doing the cast assessment probably tomorrow, right? Yeah, tomorrow probably we'll be doing a cast assessment and a draft.
Maybe tomorrow, maybe later. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see how that ends up going. Also look forward to our coverage of, well, you can introduce the next one, but what else are we covering still?
Claim to Fame. Obviously this week's Stars on Mars.
Yes.
And what else? We need to do Secret Chef. We'll be watching that soon.
Still don't have the thing for that.
And then obviously Survivor back when in the fall.
Yes. Yeah,
and then eventually we'll be catching up on the Mole, the Traders, and the Circle.
Yeah, so look forward to all of that. But other than that, I think we said all we really needed to. I'm just very happy we were finally able to do a video about this season. As always, comment down below. Let us know what you guys thought of BB24 overall. I know it's a very difficult season to talk about for many, which is understandable considering that it was very hard to watch at points. But, focus on the amazing victory we had at the end. Don't forget about the horrible things that happened.
Let's focus on Taylor.
Yes, focus on Taylor. She was the main character through and through, and she had the most satisfying win possible. The most satisfying win, I think, in general, because win and AFP. Like, you win from both the cast and you're loved by the audience. Like, it doesn't get better than that. It really doesn't get better than that. But other than that, guys, that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And remember, couples who podcast together stay. Also, I will say, sorry, this was on the longer side. We had a lot to talk about, obviously. Did not expect this video to be, I think it's going to end up being 3 hours long. So we love that. Yeah, that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And remember, couples who podcast together stay together. We will see you guys later.
Bye, guys.